All right, everybody, we welcome you here today. Good to have you all here. So we're gonna get a a sewer open house debrief.
Yes, sir.
I've talked to Gary about this, Gage, and he's got a whole different opinion of what happened. So this is really important to hear from him.
Well,
Really?
yeah, so,
Well,
And
it's a
this-
lot different than the 50 people I've heard from up there.
Well, this
Good
has to do with Sash.
Well, I don't know what it has to do with Sosh.
Well, you'll find out. Go ahead, Gary.
So this is, I don't generally do this.
Well, I asked you to.
I know,
Blame it
and I-
me.
and it's uncomfortable and I don't like doing this, but I've
What,
got,
tell them the truth?
no.
Because that's what I've asked you to
Th-
say,
That's
isn't it?
exact, that's, so, back on the, back on the 11th of November, I started an email stream with Sasha. And I asked her to help us in notifying the public of the open house. Remind me again, the date of the open house, Jared? Was
It was
the
November 22nd.
22nd. So we were 10 days prior to the open house that we started notification, or at least discussing it. The conversation, I'll just capture it all in a synopsis for you. I said, would you mind helping us in notifying the public and getting the word out? She said, absolutely. Send me something and I can get it out. And so on the 12th, that Friday, Jared sent over to Sasha a little snippet that showed the date, the time, the location. And we had asked her to send it out. The exact words I said, we were wondering if you could help us and post the information online. She said, yes, we can post it on our social page, post it in the Valley social pages, send it in an email to our Valley list, and get it in the Ogden Valley News. So we prepared the document, sent it over, and the last correspondence was from Sasha saying, thanks, Jared, we will get this out.
So that isn't the word we got from her.
No.
And Miranda, you can correct me if I'm
Whose tab
wrong.
was she working on?
Would have been the counties under PI.
Well, so that's the whole question, is she has direct instructions that unless the commission, 2 of the 3 commissioners approve a project or some outreach, then the
Not to do
department better
anything.
have funds in their account.
Okay. And in the past,
So
on
the
12th.
first thing you gotta do is we gotta verify who's paying for it.
Okay, that's
We're
fair.
tired of it coming back, everybody ordering up on our account, which is
Sure.
not gonna happen.
Sure. And this is the first time hearing that, Commissioner, so part of that is on me. I was not
Yeah,
aware of
but
that.
even under
direction.
this, she didn't go back and ask them about
Yeah,
funding,
Yeah,
and they got money. We give them $17,000 to
I
do this.
would have been more than happy to pay the
Yeah.
invoice it took.
Yeah,
I
which
can't
is-
imagine it's a
which I
lot of
agree with
effort to
that.
do that.
Yeah,
In the past, I've had her help me with 12th Street when we had road closures. No one ever said anything to me about that. So now that I know this, Commissioner, I appreciate that. And
Yeah.
I'll take that into.
but she kind of went
consideration.
off on us last
Yeah.
Tuesday and said it's not her job to
I-
do this. And then he shows me this today and it's like, whoa,
yeah, no.
I was a
okay.
little taken back by that.
That's new information to me.
So the minute we got into that meeting, I think I actually approached Miranda first and you were not happy in that meeting and as long with everybody else that no notification had been given until that day. Well,
No, that includes all of the water companies, all of the sewer companies. In no way were we informed until I got a text after Rob Thomas received some sort of message at about 12:30 that day.
That's right.
4 hours, 5 hours.
Well, anyway,
and that's
we
because
dropped
the
the
morning
ball.
of, I kind of
Yeah,
got
for our
nervous
people.
and I called Jared. We hadn't heard anything about it, so we started notifying people ourselves that day.
All
So-
right.
So at any rate,
So we got a
Intent-
second meeting scheduled now, right?
we do. And we've already
Alright.
got notice out to folks. We've got, I've even seen Facebook chatter about it, I believe. Haven't I, Jared?
Yeah, if I can add to that, we've got a link to both the presentation that was presented and to a 2011 study that was done for the southern area of the valley. So that's all available. We've sent it out. I've talked with Gary and Jan Fulmer. They're both there that night and they've got communications. They said they have over 200 emails and then they have every HOA president's email. So I immediately said, thank you so much for helping. And here it is. And so Jan, I've been talking with Jan 4 or 5 emails a couple this morning, and so it sounds like we're getting information out, but I don't, anything we can do, we're more than willing, just don't know what else we can do, but Shauna Francis got her all the information, and she's in the newspaper, so we're trying to do our part. I don't know what else we can do to get word out.
Well, it sounds like you got it covered for the 9th.
Yeah.
The challenge we're up against before is when you start a meeting out, when people are already irritated that they didn't get notice, you're in a losing situation already.
Yeah.
And we heard about it not just once, probably everybody that made a comment that night blasted us about the lack of notification. And they're right. They're completely in the right to be upset. But the problem is that just works everybody else into a bigger lather
Yeah.
as they start off.
Well, listen, I don't know if we need to go over that anymore. We have covered it in detail with
Yeah.
Josh.
Yeah.
So me and Gage and Harv are very up on what happened.
Yeah.
This just shifted the blame, and I'm really glad to know this.
Which is never my intention to throw anybody under the bus.
Stop it.
ever. Well, Commissioner, I
It's your
don't like,
intention to tell the truth, and that's all I asked for.
you're correct. And that's
Okay,
exactly what we did.
good.
I'll stop.
Yeah, stop right there.
Okay, so we know about the notice, but the other issues that I still am receiving feedback on is we had a 20-minute delay in getting started. So
Correct.
you had people already upset that we're late, and then you had a 20-minute.
That's correct.
It's not professional to show up 5 minutes before, and then, so I would say next time, be better prepared.
Oh, we will, and we were
You need to
told.
be there, you need to be there an hour beforehand to make sure things are working.
Agreed.
So Jared, let me tell you what I want out of this.
Yes.
I know what you give us, and I'm okay with what you give us so far, but when you meet next time, this is what I want. You showed that sewer line going up north and
Yeah.
west,
Yeah.
up the valley, up in Eden and Liberty. What I want to know is I want to know the fall of the land. And where you estimate, and we understand this is an estimate.
Right.
This is a high-level engineering estimate. We want to know where you estimate the lift stations will have to be, take this in. And will there need to be 2 of these small plants, or will there need to be 3, or will 1 do it? I'm very familiar with pump sewer because I lived in a community and I've been involved with it my entire adult life. But what I'm not familiar with is these small plants, like is up at Wolf Creek.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with the capacity of those kind of plants. And I know when they say that the capacity is set for what it's going to be able to do up on the hill. Well, does their capacity take in anything downstream from them? Can we pump up to them? Do they have any capacity left that they don't plan on using? And if they plan on using it all, we're gonna area that we're gonna be able to take in or not. And the reason I say that, we're trying to master plan that area. Well, a big part of the master plan of that area is gonna have to be density and sewer and what can happen.
Right.
And if we only have capacity to go into certain areas, then we're just gonna have to master plan those areas for higher density and the other areas for lower. That's just what we're gonna have to end up doing. But we need information to help us make decisions, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got the village concept. You have our current master plan.
Right.
So we know where, that at least from the village standpoint, where the community would like development density to go. So I think that's what we need to concentrate on.
And I don't think, there's nothing that's happened among the commission that's changed that.
No, but what I would tell you, Jared, I want to make sure the dialogue is very direct. There's a lot of people that I think, based upon your comments and your presentation, that this was predetermined by the commission that we wanted sewer there, which is exactly opposite.
Correct.
What we want to do is have the study done, and this is not, we talked about nitrates. Well, whether we have a nitrate problem or not, you know, it's above me. But this is about the future, about 20, 30 years, 40 years from now, that we're not gonna have an opportunity to have outside dollars help pay for a sewer system. So we can either do it now and have some help, or we can put it on our kids and grandkids. There eventually will be sewer there. We know that. But instead of being maybe 4,000 or 5,000 hookup, it'll be 20 or 25,000. So now all you do is price out the locals again and affordable housing. So all we want to do is give an option, an opportunity, if the people up in the valley want it. If they don't, then, you know, like I've told Commissioner Jenkins, we've got plenty of spots down here to use the money. So this is not being pushed by the commission in any way. This is an opportunity that we have. If the citizens up there want to take advantage of it for both water and sewer, great.
And it sounded like, I mean, you were there for the first half of the meeting, but
Right.
it sounded like the majority in the meeting, they questioned it quite a bit, to the point where it didn't feel like they really wanted to have sewer up there. So
They question whether we should even be doing it.
Yeah, so if I can interrupt
Go
for a
ahead.
second, please, Jared, we actually talked about this $50 million coming from the state.
Right.
And as we talked about it, we identified it is federal ARPA money, and it's only identified that it can be used for certain uses. It can't be used for roads, it can't be used, there's certain specific uses it can be used for.
Correct.
And the comment was made by not just one, but a couple different people that they didn't even want the money spent up there. They didn't think that the money should be spent on the sewer. Am I
Right.
capturing that out of context, you guys?
Yeah.
So,
Well, we got plenty of places to put it out west.
oh,
So
we absolutely do. Their concern was, and maybe we can capture this a little differently. I think one of the biggest concerns they had is that this was the intent to solve the nitrate issue. That was never the intent of
No.
any of this sewer study.
no,
The study was done to identify, like you said, how the sewer could be installed, where areas it could service. And that, you know, we brought up that the timing is perfect, that the ARPA money could cover the cost of this. And there were a few
So-
different individuals, and I don't remember who they were specifically, Miranda, but they mentioned they didn't want the money spent up there.
yeah,
So when we talk about the nitrate issue, we have the study that was done on Pineview that we've recently received. They did not go in to the nitrate levels in the ground, say a half a mile from the water's edge, did they?
Well, and that's the problem, is the nitrate issue, the nitrate study got brought up and kind of, for lack of a better term, muddied the waters, right? So
And I
many
understand,
people.
but let me tell you where I'm going
focus
with
on-
this.
Okay, sure.
We've not given you the money or authorized you to do a study at that level,
Right,
right?
right.
Where you're gonna go over there and do groundwater studies to find out
Right.
100%
exactly
correct.
where the nitrate's coming from. Now, we're assuming in this whole thing, common sense tells you look at the houses where they are, and that's where the nitrate's coming from, because those are the people depositing in that. And that's just what you believe, and
Sure.
common sense tells you that. We've not gone anywhere past that. Do you feel like we need to?
No,
So when we talk about the nitrate problem, that actually goes kind of hand in glove with the sewer, because we're gonna go run into the houses, and that
Well,
should take,
can I make a comment on
Please,
that real quick?
yeah.
please.
So so Commissioner Fuller and I were sitting down with the health department with Brian Cowan, and he mentioned, he did a little analysis just on the fertilization that's put into yards at homes, let alone, we didn't talk about fertilization that's put on farm grounds. So if we talk about nitrates and how they enter the ground, I think septic systems are one portion of that, or one option of
Yeah.
that. So but we had a handful of residents that said, hey, we really need to focus on this actual nitrate problem and understanding where they all come from. And like you said, Commissioner, we were saying, actually, the study doesn't talk about that. But I want to make sure we understand and realize it will help. Nobody is disagreeing that it will not help mitigate. It's gonna help alleviate some of those nitrates. It will.
no
So-
question about that.
So I want to expand on that just a little bit, Jared. So you're telling me that when a farmer puts nitrogen in his fields up there, that's very porous ground. The whole floor of that valley is except in a few areas, is rocky and porous. And when you put nitrogen on it, you know, the minute it soaks through the soil and gets into the aquifer a little, wham, it's gone, just like that. Is that part of the issue? The fertilizer, the cow manure, all that too?
I do think it's contributing to know exactly how and why and
I never thought about
and what the
that.
soils are doing and saying, but yeah, I think when you put nitrates on the ground and they go in, they're gonna get into that aquifer somehow, some way, and they are contributing.
Jared and I have talked about this a couple of times. We see this as kind of a 3 different variable equation.
Okay,
The nitrates being the end result. 3 variables would be animals, fertilizers, and humans. Now, if
Of
we can
course.
eliminate one of those variables out of the equation, that's only gonna help the situation. It's not gonna fix it all, and no one's ever gonna make that guarantee that it will fix it. But if you have a lot less contributing nitrates from the people, once you can treat it and
right,
handle that water. And on top of that, you've got this now effluent that could be utilized in a secondary application.
yeah, so you're telling us someday, maybe 50 years from now, but someday, we actually might end up restricting the number of animals in the fields up there
There's that possibility.
if this continues.
There's the possibility.
I never thought about that. I'll be dang.
Yeah, that's a,
So that adds a
Potential cost.
whole nother layer to the onion of how
Yeah,
important this sewer
truly it
study is. As much of this area as we can capture and keep those septic tanks contained and treated.
yeah,
Well, you
It's
look in
only
other
helps.
areas that have had this issue, like, you know, up in the Weaver Basin, up,
Yes.
you know, all up Snyderville Basin and all up
Snyderville
through
Basin.
there.
100%.
But the difference is we have a large dam in the bottom of this valley that takes up a fairly significant portion of it. And everything we do up there goes into that water.
That's right.
Well, I learned something new today, Gage.
yeah. No, we've heard that, you know, heard that before, but the end game is the only thing that we can focus on to solve right now is the septic system.
That's right.
You know, we're not gonna tell a farmer, you
I
can't
agree.
put fertilizer on your field. That's, you know,
Or you can't limit how many animals.
And
and
you're not
livestock
gonna
they
limit-
can't have.
you're not gonna limit the number of
How do we
animals.
know if any of those nitrates came from Buffalo?
Buffalo don't have nitrates.
They don't have nitrates, huh?
Miranda, you had a comment?
I know that this meeting's not allowed to have public comments, and with all due respect to the folks who are on Zoom. If you run the numbers on it, it's roughly, in my view, half and half. We're not, you know, a third, close enough, whatever. But it's just, if you look at the number of pounds, I was stunned when I learned how much fertilizer, if somebody's serious about alfalfa, how much fertilizer they put on, but a lot of them don't bother because it isn't cost effective. So it's not a straightforward answer. It is
Yeah.
simply exactly as Gary said. But I do think, and you can, if you wish, you can ask around. I think you are going to get a very different reaction to this study if you make clear, as Gage described, that your intention is to provide sewer to the villages. I think you will get a completely different reaction than if you show main interceptor lines going all over the valley. But the whole reaction will be different. People
Well, and
understand that if you
and
get
I-
a bunch of people in one spot.
And I
they
agree
need
with you,
sewer.
Miranda. I thought when somebody made the comment about centralized sewer, I said, I don't think there'll ever be a central sewer in the valley. Well, maybe never, but not in my lifetime. But if we can put that in certain areas where we want, and we've already said that's where the growth should go, in my opinion, it's a good thing. The other thing it does, Miranda, and you probably agree with this, right now, all that affluent is going in the ground. We can't use any of that for golf courses, we can't put that on alfalfa fields. So waters, if we're looking at, this is not only an issue of sewer, it's an issue about water usage. So if we can capture that water and put it on our fields for irrigation, that's gonna save that much water that we don't have. So
I agree with that.
let's be realistic about this. It's not just, in fact, in my opinion, it's 50-50. It's about the sewer, but let's put that water to use. Let's use it the second or third time. And as long as you have septic tanks, you're never gonna reuse that. I mean,
So,
I pour a ton of water in my septic tank every month, and guess what?
Gone.
Goes right down.
so Jared, you just got kind of your walking orders there too then. We want to know, not only where we can place these, but we want to know, if we can do it with one or two. And, we will have to come up with a concept of where we'll put this affluent after we treat it. And, you know, we can pump that a long way, so I suspect there's lots we can do.
And I think one of the study items should be, if we put a plant X, who can benefit from the water? Can we put that on Wolf Creek? If we put one, in the Eden area, who benefits from the water? If we put one over toward Huntsville, who benefits? Where can we use that water? And again, I'd go back to planning and say, look, this is already a concept that's been agreed to. Here's where the density should go. This is not, we're never gonna run sewer up South Fork Canyon. Probably never run sewer up to my place along the South Fork River. But there's areas along the highways that the village concept takes in, Nordic and some of these other high density areas that could benefit from the sewer and could benefit from water usage.
Let me ask you this, can you use wastewater for secondary? Does the state code allow you to do that?
Yeah, there's certain secondaries that state code does allow you to use it for, but you have to get, you have to have signature sign off on that right. So whoever owns that right, you've got to make
Right.
sure and get their approval that you.
Well, I
can
know they
that.
use it on the golf course up there, and those kind of uses are common, but I'm actually talking about, could we literally build a secondary in the village area? Could we build a secondary water system in there and do it with this?
Yeah, the conversations I've had is, code allows you, but whether you actually do it or not is another thing. And the conversation I had was with the ski resort development in New Mexico. So that the code allows them to reuse the water, but as soon as they created this infrastructure and said, okay, we're reusing it on the ski resort, people were open on it. So we cannot be reusing this
Really?
water. And yet it's cleaner than any secondary or river water that they
River water,
use.
right.
Yeah,
But it's the concept and the thought
That's true.
process of reusing that. So that's where I've heard that people run into issues.
well, they have a gray water statute at the state, and I worked on that a little bit. And we did a rainwater and a gray water, and I understand that they actually messed around with a little after I left. We could do gray water up in the Upper Valley.
Yeah.
And I suspect that'd be very popular up there, Gage.
I think so. I agree.
That's
Well, I
every-
think the issue is the owner of that water. So Weber Basin said, look, you're gonna take my water. We want that going in the ground to reuse it.
Right,
So, out in West Weber County on our mega site, we have an owner that owns the own water. We're gonna put 1 million gallons through the plant. We're gonna do a lagoon system. He's gonna take that 1 million gallons and irrigate his fields. So there's no issue because he owns that water. He's the retailer of the water.
Yeah.
So it comes down to who owns that water in some cases. In fact, I think a lot of the cases.
well,
So anyway, that kind of captures a little bit of
Yeah,
taste for what happened the other night, and
well, that
we will do our best to remedy that situation. think
Well, I
we've already
appreciate,
helped a lot of it.
heads up, that's, different than what we were told, so.
that's right. All right,
Any other questions, concerns, or anything to discuss regarding that?
no, just
Okay.
heads up and keep going.
Okay.
We're anxious for this.
Yeah.
You got it.
All
Thanks.
right, great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
We appreciate it. All
Thanks for your
right,
time.
so,
You're 3 minutes ahead.
where did, oh, you're still here. All right,
That presentation.
you're up, Rick.
Okay,
So it's you and Charlie's not here. There's Scott just walking in.
where's Charlie? Thanks, Jared.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
Charlie's working on some general plan stuff, so it's gonna.
So he's gonna skip this?
Yeah, we're good.
All right, well, it's noon, so we bought lunch for you.
You leaving already, Miranda?
Well, I'm debating about it. I guess my key question is whether in the ARPA funds, we've got a good shot of getting funding for our reuse water pond, storage pond, secondary.
You made application,
I will be making application. I've written it. It's just being reviewed.
get
by
the
the board,
application in.
but
How much you looking for?
1.5.
Yeah, get your application in.
And it, Summit have just proven they're spending $50,000 an acre foot on storage for that wolf farm property. And so we know that the numbers are roughly right. We think it's going to be a $4 million project.
Yeah.
We need that for secondary in order to support all of the existing lots.
Well, I would love to use
I didn't understand this.
as much ARPA money as we can and the citizens want for
We
water,
desperately want.
water and sewer. But, but I'm also getting tired of people saying, we don't want it up here. Well,
I can get you dozens of letters if you want them.
well, I think we'll know more from this, but I think I just spread the word. Look, we're here to help the existing as well as the future. But, 50 million or 100 million seems like a lot of money. When you start looking at 20 here and 30 here, it goes away quick.
So I'm really asking you
Oh, please, no, I like that.
well drilling and the reuse pond.
Yeah. Thanks. We'll get your application.
Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you.
You bet. Well, we've got you stuck up here,
I'm here till 3:30.
your lunch. huh?
I'm
So-
staying for everything.
All right, well, there you go.
Some interesting things on the agenda.
Okay, I didn't know we were meeting at 11:30. Good thing Shelley texted me.
Well, I didn't either.
Yeah,
I thought it was 11.
yeah, we just barely got out of the gym.
Yeah. All right,
Okay,
who's going to do it?
So Commissioners, we have a charge to get the moderate income housing plan updated.
Yeah.
It's got to be to the state by December 1st. And so we have this to come before you right now, just to look at this, and we made some minor modifications to this. Scott, why don't you go over those?
Yeah, so we've been doing this for the past 3 years now, since SB 34 came out and required us to have annual reporting. So this is our
Yeah.
annual report.
So is Melissa and Andy they participate in it with you?
Yeah, and there's information in here too that talks about some of the collaboration that we've had with them.
Well, we recently kicked off that, it's more of a regional housing attainment study that we're working on through the Wasatch Front Regional Council. So we kicked that off a couple weeks back. It'll be interesting to see as we collect data and have a regional focus on that study to see what we're looking at. The challenge that we're having right now is the census data came out so late that the state didn't have a chance to update their reporting calculators with any new data. So we're still operating off of the ACS, their estimates, they're not even data points. So
Right.
so the ACS, we had data from 2009 through 2017, and we did 5-year projections off of that data set. That's all pre-pandemic, pre-2020 census. So this year's reporting is simply a 1-year extrapolation for 2026, a 5-year horizon on that ACS data. We use that data for 2024 and 2025. Now we're having to use it again for 2026. And it's a mathematical extrapolation out to 2026. We've talked with the state. They know of our frustrations with the available tools and data to report and satisfy this reporting. And we're working on some stuff, but it's not.
Well, everybody's got the same frustration, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of issues, and everybody who reports to the state is reporting, different data sets, and they can't take everybody's report and plug it all in to get a holistic picture. So they know about that. We talked with them. They recognize some of the challenges, especially for unincorporated counties where a lot of the census geographies don't match our boundaries. It makes, some of these estimates really challenging to put together mathematically. So we took what we had the last couple of years, we just extrapolated 1 more year on it. We're kind of getting into the funny number territory. On the second document you got in front of you. If you reach past
What page you on?
we're gonna be, so on the second, so there's a cover document and then a second document. Flip to the last 2 or 3 pages. The front half of this is
mostly just staff explaining how we've been addressing some of the goals.
Where the charts are?
So hop back to the chart, you see that we've put together some charts from 2017, looking out to 2026. 2017 was the last year of ECS data, and then from there, we've extrapolated with 1-year projections out to 2026.
ECS data,
ACS.
ACS. What?
American Community Survey.
Okay.
It's a data set provided by the Census Bureau. So we're asked to report on the demand for moderate income housing, the supply of housing, the housing costs, and household income. So we put together tables for each of these data points, but we know that our demand is going up. We know.
So
our
you're
supply is
telling me
going
that
down.
you believe it's almost gonna double out west? It did go up in the upper valley, but not much.
Not a heck of a lot.
Yeah, that's where this data set that we're having to work off of leaves a lot of questions. We don't know how much we can hang our hat on many of these numbers. But I mean, the bigger picture here is the demand's going up, the supply is dwindling,
Yeah.
and housing costs are increasing, and income isn't keeping up with costs. We know that that's one of the biggest issues is incomes in the state of Utah aren't keeping up with housing costs.
Yeah. Well, we've seen, Andy had some of these charts a while back that showed 3 or 4 large housing complexes that had received only Walker money, and their time had elapsed. So they didn't re-up with it. They just went to the open market. So they've lost 3 or 4 large, it was several hundred. You remember, Gage, how many? I don't remember that.
Yeah, a few hundred.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
anyway, they're saying that there's so much money on the open market now that they no longer, they want to be involved. So that's part of this loss, is the fact that they can hardly wait to get out of that because the rents are so high right now.
So this is the report that we'll be submitting to the state. We're required to put it on our website and also submit it to our Council of Governments as part of the reporting requirements. So we wanted to bring it to you guys just to give you guys a quick look at it, see if you guys have any questions before we submitted it before the deadline.
So what is a moderate income house price in today's market?
It's about $500,000.
You're the realtor, you're supposed
Well, I know what my idea is, but I'm asking them. They're the experts.
If you look at
I just know what the market is.
Yeah.
the back page kind of shows you, based on income, how much purchase power people have.
Yeah.
So in 2020, we knew that out west, 80% of AMI, the purchase power was 245,000, which is not going to cut it really with house prices now. Looking at that same measurement, if we project that out to 2026, their purchase power is 267 based on their income projection. If you flip back one page, the
Hold
median
on.
housing costs are where you can compare.
Hold on. So you're talking from 220 to 225, 2025. You're saying the house payment's only gonna go up, not even $100?
No, this is your purchase power based on your
Purchasing
income.
power.
And I understand, but when you talk about purchasing, oh, I see what you're saying.
So we're
Purchasing
saying,
power, that's not tying it to the home. You're just saying this is what you can afford.
Right.
Oh, I'm with you now.
so the 80% AMI income in 2020 was 50,269. Projected to increase to 54,757 in 2026. So that then is extrapolated. If we say 28% of your income goes towards housing costs, then that's where you can afford $245,000 as a home price in 2020 or 267 in 2026.
And you can't buy a two-car garage for 200.
No.
But you,
No.
that, the 267 is inner city Ogden right now.
If you can find it.
If you can find it.
Yeah, if you can find it.
2-bedroom, 1 bathroom,
Right. That's correct.
800 square foot
Yeah.
little Yeah.
Fixer upper.
Yeah, exactly.
Fixer upper, yeah. Yeah, you're right, Sean.
So if you flip back one page, it'll show.
Do you
the
think that's
projected
realistic though,
prices.
even that price? I had a realtor say to me the other day, it was Jeff Hales, you guys all know him. He said, you know, if you got a house in Plain City, any consequence, it's worth 300,000. Little shack,
Yeah, oh, yeah.
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 Yeah, I've talked to neighborhood development over at Ogden City, and these numbers are pretty much on spot.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
Wow.
very interesting.
Well, if you're saying that, then you're saying here that
Yeah, I agree. Rick.
80%. I mean,
That's moderate income, yeah.
80%, you can't get a loan on
Correct.
that even.
Correct.
So to get a loan, you're gonna be down in the, below 50%, aren't you? I mean, a bank won't loan you for a home, 50% of your income.
No. Well, based on other debt, yeah, but that's correct.
Yeah,
That's
so
correct.
even if you were totally out of debt,
Yeah, you still wouldn't do it.
yeah, that's the point. This is terrible.
Yes, it
God.
is.
This is terrible.
Tricky subject for sure.
Well, in the unincorporated areas, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about even the cities here. We're talking about just the unincorporated areas, but there's another dynamic where the unincorporated areas don't have some of the same services as far as transportation and social services and those kinds of things. They have to travel in to get those services. So it compounds this.
Yeah, because it costs more to live out.
Correct.
That's true.
So the unincorporated areas it's a different game than any of the cities.
That's correct.
You know, it's so funny, and these people don't want to address it. They want to say, and truly this magnifies, this shows right here, they want to say, I got my piece of heaven.
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't change it.
Yes.
Close the door.
Yeah, close the door. That's exactly right.
So that's the story in a nutshell. That's kind of what we expected, and just based on the trends, just extrapolating another year out, we're just going in the wrong direction as far as that delta between affordability and income. Just keep going.
Yeah.
But it's statewide. You saw the number in 2026, we're negative on affordable housing in both areas, but statewide and in most of the cities, I think we're already negative. So most of the cities in Weber County.
Yeah, even Ogden, like you said,
Yeah.
Ogden City probably comes the closest. And even if you took a look at Ogden City at 80% AMI, they'd probably be in the same situation we are, just because of the income's gonna be less.
Right.
Well, Mark Johnson told us those homes, D Elementary, that they put in there, those guys they sold them to, they had to sign the document saying they stay for 3 years.
Yeah,
And he said the first one just sold. Do you remember, Sean, what he told us that sold at?
Over 400.
Yeah, it was over 400,
425, I think he said.
something like that,
Yeah.
417, 425.
yeah.
And those were $200,000 homes, weren't they?
Correct. When they were built
220
Yep.
and two, something like that,
They weren't deed restricted?
for a period of time.
for 3
Only
years.
For 3
Yeah.
years, so
They'd
they
stay
weren't,
there
they
3
weren't
years.
held at 3% growth.
Correct. Correct.
So after 3 years, it's just market
It's
rate.
market rate.
Yeah, and they just sold the first.
They want it that way because they want a different population moving into downtown Ogden.
Yeah, wow.
Well, until we cure our supply problem, I don't see a change.
Well, I don't either.
And I don't
And
know how
you know,
you-
Melissa gets all hopped up about this and I try to calm her down. But I tell her that, I says, Melissa, this isn't about zoning and getting people to do all the things that we feel like we have the ability to do. This is all about what they will and can build. And one of the problems we've seen this coming for several years now. My son-in-law, I asked him one time, I said, Tim, what happened to all the $350,000 homes? And he said to me, he says, you know, people can still build a $350,000 home, but when they can sell all the $450,000 homes they can build, why will they build the 350s?
Yeah.
And that's what the market's at right now. Everything they can build at 450, 425, they can sell.
You're right.
So that's what they're building. They make more on them. They're more, they're nicer homes. That's what people want to build and buy, and
Right.
that's where it's going. And unfortunately, the people that don't have a lot of money, they're in trouble. And you know, a fair amount of those are retirees.
And that's what you heard with the.
Yeah,
at
our
the-
tax
at the
increase.
tax increase hearing.
Even though it was a moderate one,
Yeah,
we heard that all night long.
Yep.
you're right.
So, we did pass our ADU ordinance. Haven't had a lot of movement on it, to be honest. We haven't really.
Say that
licensed
again?
any. So the ADU ordinance
Oh.
for accessory dwelling units, that passed this year. Haven't licensed more than 2 or 3.
Not a lot of activity then.
And that was what we expected.
Yeah.
Because nationwide, when ADUs go into a community, only about 4 to 5% of the community actually takes advantage of it. The Ogden Valley thought, oh, we're a resort community, they're gonna be exploding and it's just gonna be going bonkers. It
Right.
hasn't.
How many applications did you have?
In the Ogden Valley, just one have we approved so far.
One,
That's a
really?
detached ADU.
Everybody thought it'd go nuts up there.
And it may change, but right now, the national trends are showing true.
I don't think it's gonna change anytime soon up there.
We're hoping that it does, start to, people take advantage so we can get some affordable housing, but.
You know, ADUs though in the Upper Valley. One of the problems you have up there is Huntsville's not far enough away. When you look at Park City, it's 25, 30 minutes away from Salt Lake. Well, Huntsville's really 15 minutes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's about half the distance. And so for somebody to live on 23rd and Jackson or 20, and work at the ski resort during the winter, it's a 20-minute drive, if that. You can really get through the canyon in about 12 minutes when there's not much happening. I don't know. I suspect a fair amount of those workers come from Morgan County, just up over Trappers.
A lot of do.
Yeah. Kids that work there. Huh.
So if you're okay, we're gonna proceed with this and get this submitted if you're all right with that.
That's probably okay, okay.
Yeah, good with that.
Boy, though,
And this does help.
when we start talking about, and this will come up, when we start doing the master plan in West Weaver County, and we say to them, okay, where are we gonna put our affordable housing and our density out here? And they all start going, oh, we don't want that. Remember this, because these are the very charts we need to show. And I suspect, they've got, in my mind, they have a viable corridor out there along that railroad track and that commercial road. In my mind, I think we ought to take a big magic marker, draw an elongated circle around that whole thing and say, that's it. That's where we'll put our density.
Yeah, it's like, okay, here's the numbers. Your kids and grandkids want a place to live out here, or
Right.
they can live in your basement.
That's right. That's right.
There's no alternative.
No alternative.
Single family is not viable between that area and the railroad tracks. I just don't see anything happening.
No. You're right.
Also too, this coming Wednesday, we have the meeting out at UNT Elementary School. So it'll be just an open house forum. So if you can make it, love to see you there. We have it on your calendars, but totally understand.
Fine.
Thursday night.
Wednesday.
What are you gonna talk about, you in elementary?
So we're gonna have boards set up dealing with land use, roads, transportation, active transportation, where you'd like to see sidewalks, where you would not like to see sidewalks.
Do we have any vacant property up there of
There
any
is.
consequence?
There is still some vacant land. There has been discussion about possibly creating, would you like to have a park district in that area? Would you like to see parks in some of that open land that's there? Would that be beneficial? You may recall a little while ago, the church, they got rid of some property out there and it was subdivided into a subdivision, but the community was saying, well, we'd like to see a park there. Well, you need a park district, you need to have funds to maintain it if that's what you want to do. But we don't have a plan that identifies that, so we're just gonna be asking some of those questions, you know, do you want to have parks, do you want to have a better trail system? Do you want to look at the same density as what's happening out there? Because the plan right now calls for, in some of the vacant areas, it requires for some higher density in those areas. And when we did some subdivisions out there, the residents came in blue, they didn't want to see that. And so we're wanting to get their input on all of those things. So there is some things out there. There's a few hot topic buttons. We visited with Commissioner Harvey about some of the hot topic buttons. One thing that he said is a hot topic button, and I'm still trying to figure it out because we haven't communicated with the public, is broadband. They really want to see broadband more out in that area. And so those are some things we're going to be getting feedback on. Sent stuff out last week. We got notices and we put up flyers and it was sent out in all the kids' backpacks. We got it in their school through the principal and that. So there's flyers out there that way, and we put stuff out there. Just with Thanksgiving, we're still concerned, you know, right, how many people are going to be there, but we didn't want to wait till the start of the year. We wanted to get it in there, so we tried to get it, you know, soon before the Christmas parties and everything started happening. So this Wednesday.
I think you're good with that, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing wrong with this.
We've also reached out to some of the church organizations and given them some flyers and things like that. So hopefully they got some of the word out.
Where's the meeting going to be?
It's at the UNT Elementary School.
Elementary.
Well, all right, any questions? Good, Paige? You guys okay with all that?
Appreciate the feedback. Also on planning commission tomorrow night up in the Ogden Valley. Remember the gravel pit that we rezoned for storage units?
Yeah.
So they're requesting to have some language softened in the development agreement. We require that the buildings have more of a wood motif and have a barn style element. Well, now they're coming back and saying they'd like to have metal buildings in there and take away that wood motif, and planning staff has recommended denial of that because that's what they presented, that's what the public was aware of, and we don't feel that's appropriate to, you know, kind of do a bait and switch. So we told the developer, it's up to you. You got to sell it to the planning commission and the county commission.
So they can make these metal buildings look farming like that.
They have done some things that way to try to help create that farm look with the roof pitch and some cupolas and different things like that. But at the same time, it's right along the river, and you have a trail system that will be going in there eventually. And the sentiment that we had last time from the public is that they wanted to not have these big linear buildings along the river, but they wanted to have more smaller buildings. And I understand the developer's plight is it's hard to make money on storage units when you don't have that long linear fill, but that's what was approved as part of the development agreement originally. So we still have some reservations about that. So he says, you know, if he commits the planning commission and the county commission on that, but right now we're still, planning staff has some reservations on it. So
I'd like to see it. I mean, they agreed to that. That was part of the reason that we agreed to the rezone.
Yeah.
Was based on the development so I'm hesitant to go back.
We gave two options in the staff report. One is to go with what they would like to do, but the other one was to basically stay with what we have with some minor modifications.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'd like to see what the planning commission,
Yeah.
but my initial response is, yeah, I mean, they agreed to that. We agreed to it. to have them come back now and say, okay. I mean, that's what the community bought off on.
The way I look at it, long as the look doesn't change, I don't care if it's metal or wood. But the look's gotta stay the same, because the
If they can make,
people agreed to that.
if they can make it look like that Western or wood, I'm fine with it. It
Yeah.
has to look that way.
I don't care if it's wood or metal, but it's gotta be the same look, because everybody agreed to that.
Fair enough.
Rick, I just forwarded you an email. It's from Taylor West Weaver asking about Cherokee Meadows and what the status of the escrow is for the secondary water improvements. Do you mind just following up with Steve or Chad, Gary, whoever it is? And then whoever needs to respond to that, having them respond to Ryan Rogers, just to let him know what's going on. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Well. Discussion on vaccination policy. That was added. Have you seen that?
Sarah's come up, she told me about it Friday, I guess. No, when was it?
Checks to give me a copy of it.
Yeah.
Well, that's on our, that's gonna be on our agenda to approve tomorrow. And what it says basically, if the courts overturn this with the federal government or, does this, but then it'll go into compliance,
Yeah.
go into,
Well, the courts have it on hold right now, don't they?
Right.
Yeah.
and I knew that, but, actually, I'm okay with that. Is there anything?
Yeah.
I don't know if we need a lot of discussion on that.
No, I mean, basically out of our hands.
Yeah,
I mean, we need to have a policy in place, obviously, in case it doesn't get overturned. But
and that's all there is, is policy.
let's be ready.
Yeah. Have you seen it yet, Sean?
I saw it was on the agenda. Is it on commission meeting tomorrow?
Uh-huh.
But I haven't seen
She
the
gave me a
actual
copy
policy.
of it just a few minutes ago, just before we walked in here. On my desk. Let me go get it. Basically, this comes down to two things. And that is on January 4th. If it goes into effect, that's what this says. But we can't hire any new employees unless they've been vaccinated. And all existing employees will be either vaccinated or tested. And that's it. That's basically what it says.
Okay.
Vaccinated or tested.
Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, in other words, we're not gonna look back and make everybody be vaccinated.
Is it a weekly test?
Weekly. That's what it says. You want a copy of that?
Sure.
So you,
Thank you.
that's my copy, so you'll have to take
I
it.
think the question that Sarah had is, number one, who pays for it?
Oh, it'll be our, we'll have to.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah, we'll
I
have to
don't
do
think
it.
we put that on the employee.
I agree.
And then, if we're gonna do that, we need to make it convenient. So do we have multiple sites rather than have them go all to the health department? I mean, I think Sarah's got a plan in mind.
Yeah, she did say she had something. I didn't get into it with her. That's kind of her responsibility, so I really don't care.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I see
But that
that
could be-
same way, Gage.
that could be some cost.
Of course, the vaccines, we're still getting them free, right,
Yeah,
from the feds, so.
yeah. My personal preference is everybody just get the vaccine. We're done with it.
Yeah, that solves it.
I think she told me we were what, close to 50-50?
Uh-huh. That is what she said. So we've done pretty good.
Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised those people still don't want to. Especially with that, what happened last week. That new vaccine coming out, or the new,
Yeah, the new
Variant.
variant. Although I was listening this morning, and they're saying it appears now that they're following that the effects are moderate.
good.
Yeah, not even as tough as the original
Oh.
COVID-19, so. Anyway,
Yeah,
well, that's kind of the way this Delta variant's been. It's a
Hasn't
little
been-
lower.
it hasn't been changed a lot, has it?
No, it's just, I don't know. I don't know what you do with the gauge. It's a tough deal.
It
So
is.
it says, basically, I said, this is for companies, 100 employees or more then. She says, that's exactly what it is.
Well, that's your company.
Yeah, that's my company. So she says, take the policy and take it out there. I
Tell your
know.
brothers.
Yeah, well, we meet here in a week. So I'll have to show it to them. You getting a cold?
Just getting over one. Caught one over the holiday.
Hmm.
Yeah. Kelly got one, I got one.
Man, last year was the first year in 5 or 6 that I didn't get a cold.
Really?
I think it's because I wore the mask all the time.
Probably was. Well, I didn't have one for like 2 years. But it zapped me this time.
Well, I don't know, Gage, I don't know what you do about this affordable housing deal. I mean, everybody expects government to solve the problem.
Yep.
But
Only so much we can do.
yeah, and it's really government by the people, and so
Yeah.
all these individual towns that don't want it, I mean, you can't make them do it.
No. No, that's where this whole thing starts.
I was in a meeting the other day that Dickamore was in there, and he was railing on the county because we'd approved this subdivision out there for 275 homes. And Mark Johnson and Rich Hire were there. And they both spoke up and said, man, 273 homes. They said, we get that in a couple of blocks
Yeah.
downtown. He
Yeah.
says, and you guys are having a fit over it. We said, we just don't understand that. Well, and Mark, or not Mark, Mike Caldwell said, he says, he says, we got to get over that. He says, when you start talking with Wasatch Front and all these different people that are trying to encourage a little more density, he says, this is the very issue they're talking about right here. He says, there's 2 towns that are just having a conniption fit over this. And this doesn't even meet their own zoning with the PlayStation 3rd acre.
Oh, yeah.
He
Yeah.
says, if you divide it, he says, this is well within it.
It's-
And he says, and they're having a conniption fit over it.
Yeah.
He says, I just don't understand it.
No, that's because the ones that look at it on a supply side and the future side can't get elected
Yeah.
to the city councils.
Yeah, you're right.
All you do is say, hey, I'm anti-growth and we're gonna stop development. They're sitting in that chair overnight.
Yeah. Well, Mayor Showbloom, she's out.
Is she out?
In West Haven.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's out.
Bolos.
Bolos, yeah, not Showbloom, Bolos, that's right. Yeah, she's out.
Yep.
And she lost.
I'm surprised Lee lost.
Yeah, I am too. But once again, I don't think Lee did anything wrong. I just think sometimes towns turn over.
Yeah.
You know, and he's got a younger town now. A fair amount of young people have moved down out and out there and they want change.
That was a close race too.
Yeah,
That's true, yeah.
wasn't it just 20 votes?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Oh, it's that simple.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't think in Lee's case, I don't think he did anything wrong.
I don't get it.
If there was any big movement to get rid of him. I just think it
How
was,
many years have you been in?
I think 3 terms.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
Sometimes
been
people-
12 years.
Did he fill a partial term for Mayor Papa George? I don't know if he
No.
did or not.
I don't think he did.
Okay.
Then he was out.
You ready for Sarah?
12:30. Sure.
Yeah, you got Sarah?
Hey, just so you're aware, Republic sent us their annual price increase starting January 1st.
That doesn't surprise me.
The 3%, this is for the curbside collection. So every year that'll go up as long as they have the contract, and it is what it is.
Right.
So just so you're aware,
And it's good.
it is, it's still
Everybody is happy with that.
a
Now,
lot
that's
cheaper.
been that's been a little bit of a lift. But all in all, everybody is happy with that. So Gage, he was just telling us that Republic sent us their 3% increase.
We knew that was coming.
Yeah, every year. And like you said, it'll be that way every year.
Yeah.
I assume we'll see Waste Management's here any day, so.
Yeah. We've got that fixed though, not to exceed 3%.
Correct,
right?
it's 3% annually. Every January 1st, it goes up 3%.
Well, last year we ate it.
We did.
Yeah, we didn't increase it. We just ate the difference. So we'll have to decide if we're gonna do it this year or not.
How much does that amount to, Sean?
The first can is 17 cents in the Uinta Highlands and 19 cents out in western Weber County. It's really pretty minimal. When you look
Yeah.
at it over a year period, it may be $5 total that
Right.
somebody's going to pay, if that, maybe
Right.
3 or 4.
We'll have to have that discussion.
Yeah.
And it depends on the number of cans they have.
Well, and last year, we really looked at the balance and what was happening and
Yeah,
if our balance is going up or down. So anyway. Yeah, that's been okay, Gage.
I think it's worked out well.
Yeah. Are you pleased with it, where you're at, your house?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't change much for me.
Yeah.
You already had Waste Management?
I already had waste
Yeah.
management. so-
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so
Oh.
you still put out the green can and yeah,
So for you, really,
And I-
there's almost no, it's other than you're just paying a little less.
I think we paid a little less, yeah.
Yeah.
It should be a minute.
Pardon?
I texted Sarah, so it'll be a minute.
Okay,
And then Jim texted and he probably won't make the work session at all.
okay.
He's got mediation.
So what's this deal he's in?
That's, has to do with the district, Powder Mountain Water and Sewer.
Oh, does it? Okay.
They suing somebody or?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Don't know what's happening there.
Did we
I
ever?
thought he resigned.
No, he's not the chair anymore,
Oh,
but he's still in it.
We ever find a resolution on everything that's been discussed?
No.
Okay.
They didn't want to accept it, so as far as I'm concerned, we're not making any offers.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're done. I don't think we ought to ever give him anything now. That was a peace offering we give them,
yeah.
and I think they viewed it as a slap in the face. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't want to deal with them on anything now. They're on their own.
Yeah, I thought that was a fair offer
I did too.
based upon what really that I thought we should be paying. We got a COG meeting tonight?
Nope, next week.
Next week.
Met with Truett this morning. He said we had it today, so I don't think so. Next week, right?
Yes. Just so you're aware, I'm out all next week.
All right.
Yep. Taking a little pre-Christmas vacation with my family, so.
Good for you.
Are you?
Yep.
I'm about that close to picking up a cruise between Christmas and New
There
Year's.
you go.
So I'm thinking about it.
What are you doing?
I'm thinking about getting a cruise between Christmas
Oh, are
and
you?
New Year's. Yeah,
Are you?
why not? Once Christmas over, my kids just disappear.
Yeah.
And then we're sitting there doing nothing.
It's not, I mean, everybody's kind of dead. That's a dead week
It
anyway.
is.
Well, Harv, are you taking off next week?
Well, I got so much going, I can only take a little here and there.
That's how I am. I may go to St. George this weekend, though, but maybe come back. Because we don't.
Are you
have-
gonna go down to that ball game?
I don't think so.
I didn't either. Becky, my wife didn't want to do that.
I'm not sure I want to fight the crowd.
They're changing our stake president next weekend and
Oh, is
she
that right?
didn't want to leave town.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so. Like, come on, Beck. Nope.
I hope they pull it off.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see that.
That'd be great.
That'd put a lot of energy back in the well, not just the University of Utah program. That put a lot in the state because BYU beat them and.
Right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Go
Yeah.
statewide, absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be energy statewide for lots of different reasons. Well, there's a lot good happened this year. Bronco Mendenhall, he had a great year.
He
He
did.
come back
Yeah,
and played.
Virginia
It's been
played
good for
well.
him. and-
Yeah.
I don't know if we really need to do this because you're already briefed and I kind of told Gage on.
And we
but I'll just
kind of
go over it
are.
again.
Well, you were on
What they
there. We
do?
want to make sure that if you needed,
Gage, that's just a copy of the policy I already told you about that will be on there.
Yep.
So the effective date, if you, and Sean, you can have that one.
Thank you.
If you look at that one, it says the effective date is when and if OSHA's ETS goes into effect. That last line on there also says that the Weber County Commissioners don't support it, but if we're obligated by law to put in the policy, that we have the policy in place, and we will do so. It doesn't mean people have to get vaccinated. It just means if they don't get vaccinated, they have to get weekly testing
Right.
and submit those results. The health department offers weekly testing twice a week in their parking lot for free. So we can send employees over there.
so
As I
that
told
was a question Gage had. So this won't cost us anything.
No,
Twice a week?
twice a week. So they could go on either of the 2 days that they offer testing in their parking lot and it's free. And so really the biggest nightmare is for me because administratively, I gotta track all of it and get people's test results and find out they're vaccinated, but no big deal. We'll figure it out outside of that. And again, that's if. So the state could still reject it, which is from what I understand, I don't know why, but they didn't reject it. And we thought they would. And based on the lawsuits, it's in court right now. It's on hold. So we don't know anything yet, but they could come back at any time and say it's in effect next week.
Right.
So this policy is just there so that we're prepared if it happens.
Right. Okay.
But nothing happens until that does happen. So
Yeah,
that's it.
I think we're there with it, aren't we?
Yeah,
Did you have something else you need to talk to me about?
Yeah, but it can wait if it's no big deal. It
Well, we
can
got 20 minutes right now.
yeah.
Let's go do it now.
All right,
Do you want me to pause this?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, pause it.
Like an internal audit.
All right, we're starting up again. It's our 1 o'clock meeting. And this is with Ricky Hatch, Scott Park, Steph Ebert. And it has to do with the 2022 tentative budget and changes.
Yep.
All right, Mr. Park.
All right. Harvey, I assume is not here today, right?
Pardon?
Harvey, is he?
No.
Okay.
He's in a deposition, I
He's
guess,
tied
from
up.
what we hear. He's tied up with Powder Mountain sewer water.
Well, that's good. I'm glad we're in here. and I-
Yeah, that's what I said. I'm glad it's him. I
You're an
remember
asshole.
when Chris Allred said to me when I told him they wanted me to get on that board, he says, you know, if I was you, I think I'd stay off there. That was good advice. And I heeded it.
Okay, so there's just a couple of things that popped up, questions from
from the time we settled the 2022 tentative budget, excuse me, to what we want to do for the final budget. So I just wanted to hit these with you, and then I have two other quick things. So first, the YCC requested a donation. We had approved 20,000 in the 2021 budget last year at this time. This year, they hadn't sent us a letter. We didn't approve anything for them. Well, we got a letter after the fact saying, hey, we would like 35,000. So the question is, do we want to include a donation to the YCC? And if so, for what amount for the 2022 calendar year, which we normally pay at the end of the year?
Right.
Nothing that says we have to do that. We did tell them it was a one-time donation. Now I understand they're asking, they always ask.
Last time we had this discussion, we decided it was 20 grand.
And I'm still okay with 20.
That's where I am.
So you're
Not
okay if we
35.
put 20 in the 2022 budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what we discussed, and nobody wanted to change last time we talked.
Yep.
So don't come back and ask again.
So,
I give you our time.
so we've only approved this as one time. Do you want me to approve it as ongoing?
No,
No,
So what that means every year I will come back and
No.
ask.
yeah,
They need to make
no,
that
no, I
request
just
every
meant.
year.
Oh, okay.
and every year they'll request 35 or more. And we'll give
That's
them-
right.
Yeah, which is fine. Sometimes they work with commissioners and commissioners make commitments and I don't know whether we've made the commitment or not. So that's.
We're
why I
not
asked.
committed.
No
Okay.
commitment.
More than that.
All right. Second one, Center of Excellence received a grant. It's $200,000. It's for Midtown. They want to use it to fund 2 positions for 1 year.
Right.
So I've let them know that we can do that, but once that money's gone, it's gone. So you either need new grant money or you have to let the 2 employees go.
So Gage, Midtown has come to them and they want them to give them some resource integration coaches up there to work with. And they know it's a one time, but if it works out, they would like to do it for a while. Now, who knows what a while is, whether a while is 6 months or a year, or it works out good for a year, so they're gonna do another year. Nobody knows.
Right.
Okay,
So the employees sign a paper acknowledging they're grant funded, and if the grant goes away, their position goes.
That's
away.
all I'm concerned about is,
Sure.
Yeah,
if she can keep renewing the grants, then,
and that's the
but. yeah, I'm-
business she's in.
But I'm
She's
not,
in the grant.
I'm not prepared to put that over on the general fund.
yeah, no, so this, if she doesn't get more funding, then those positions go away. So,
And you're,
She's
you
aware.
got documentation with the people, so.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
good,
we make them sign an agreement when they get hired.
good, good.
Okay,
Okay.
so you're okay with that one?
Yep.
Okay, the next one, the sheriff called me and said, hey, you know how a couple of years ago you created some captain positions? You commissioners allowed them to create some captain positions in the jail side of things. Now they want to create a captain position in the enforcement side of things. Now they don't want a new FTE. What they want to do is take an existing lieutenant and bump that position from a lieutenant position to a captain position. It'll cost about $6,700 more a year. So they're asking for permission to do that.
Well, I remember when we did that in the jail side, we wondered if that was a wise move or not. We
Right.
questioned it.
But we allowed it on the jail side.
We did.
Yeah.
So they have 2 in the jail that are funded, and they've only filled 1.
Mhm.
2 of these positions.
So we gave them 2 captains on the jail side.
Right.
They filled one so far. They're trying to fill the other one.
Well, why can't we say use that one and then come back? Well, do we have to make the change in this budget?
Well, we could, but he's asking for 3 captains, not 2. So we could say, no, just take your captain from the one jail side and move him over to the correction, excuse me, to the enforcement side. We could say that and not give him any more, money that way. So that's an option, but he's asking for 3.
Right.
1's filled and 2 would be vacant.
It's up to you. I don't know if I really care. It's $6 grand, 67.
Yeah, I think we'd go ahead, but if he doesn't fill that position, I guess we're still all right.
Yeah, they've turned so much money back the last
Right.
year or so.
Yeah, it's for $6 grand, it's not worth fighting.
That's what I said.
Okay.
So I don't care.
Okay. The investigator at the attorney's office, when we brought over from the sheriff's office, he, I guess, was used to having a vehicle. He had a vehicle as part of his previous duties. He does not have a vehicle now, and the attorney's office has asked that he get a vehicle. The other 2 investigators in the attorney's office do have a vehicle. We could use a fleet vehicle that's about to be surplused and just say, okay, look, we're not going to give you a brand new vehicle, but we'll give you one that we were going to surplus and just let you drive that. That doesn't really cost the county much extra. It's like $200 a year plus whatever he uses it, in fuel and repair and maintenance. Otherwise, if we want to buy him a brand new vehicle, it's $7,000 a year plus his fuel and such.
I'll be honest with you, I just soon give them an allowance. Say, look, use your own car and we'll give you $350 a month.
Or mileage reimbursement, and say whatever you
Well,
drive, traffic,
sure.
we'll pay you.
I'm okay with either of those.
So he wants a new vehicle?
They asked for a new vehicle. I said, well, can you get by with a used vehicle? The attorney, Chris Howard, said, yeah, they could use a used vehicle. But he wants a vehicle.
Well, so it's the cost of the car and then it's the cost of the gas and it's the cost of the insurance.
Yep.
And and then they want to wash it once in a while. And then they, you know what I mean? It just
Yep.
seems to never end. And like I say, I just as soon have nothing to do with it and say, this is what we've chose to do at Great Western. And we're not in the car business because of that, vehicle business.
Mhm.
And we give all our guys a fuel card and we give them an auto allowance and they're done. And if they're not used that much, I just soon give them an auto allowance.
Now, I would say that's a good way of thinking, but if we were to do that, I think we would need to roll that out to the county and not just to the attorney's office, because that would be a big change.
Right.
If we were to do that, which I agree, that's a great way of doing it, doing a mileage allowance instead of all these vehicles, but that's a big change. So whatever you guys want to do, either I'd say that we change that for everybody or we don't, if that makes
Well, but
sense.
can't you keep it within that department? In other words, is he gonna use this car a lot?
I don't think they use them very much. So there's two investigators. So there's three investigators. Two have a car and one doesn't. And the two, they drive their vehicle around and basically saying, well, I need to go after hours somewhere.
I don't have an issue with that. That's why I
Well-
like them driving their own.
Well, that's what I think. I mean, that would be a wise thing, but I think if we're gonna do that, we probably have to pull the vehicle away from the other two, don't you think? So it's consistent.
Do they have vehicles?
Yeah,
the other
two of them
two?
have vehicles and one doesn't. So this is the new position we created at the attorney's office. He came and asked you guys for a new position, which you granted
Yeah.
midway through the year. And so now he's saying, well, that guy, I forgot to ask for a vehicle for that guy. The other two have vehicles, so he's trying to make them all the same. So we have a used vehicle we could give him. I like the idea of the mileage allowance, but I think we would apply that to like all vehicles in the county, not just.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to work.
So do
that
they
way.
does each of them need a vehicle? mean-
They would argue yes.
The way we
And I
always,
would argue if they work their schedules together, they can, 2 people or 3 people could share 2 cars.
Well, and I think they use the car, they take it home and
Right.
so,
So it's like their car.
yeah. I mean, they
Okay.
drive it to and
So
from.
it's kind of a perk, is what we're talking about.
well, it is a little bit of
It
one.
is a perk. I think that's what it is. It's a perk.
It's a perk.
But the reason I like the mileage is, number one, it makes them account for what they're doing. They have to turn in a, every other week allowance, and, the other reason I like it, most of these people figure, look, we're gonna spend a couple $100 a month per vehicle for me. And now I don't have to drive an old beater. If I add that $150 a month I get from the county, I can buy a really nice car. And most people are happier with that. They just soon do it that way because it allows them a nicer vehicle,
Well, Sean, you've got a lot of guys that have vehicles. Would your guys respond well to a vehicle allowance or a mileage reimbursement at say 50 some odd cents a mile?
It depends on the person. Because we've had this conversation. Talking to Bill, he loves the convenience of having that vehicle, and when he needs to help out with property management or go somewhere, he's got it at his house and he can just go instead of coming in, picking up a vehicle, going somewhere. But at the
Yeah.
same time, he said, but he'd be open to an allowance. If the county wanted to give him an allowance and he just drove his own truck, then yeah, he'd consider that. I prefer the allowance. That's what I have. I don't have a county vehicle, but I do have the allowance and that's what I prefer.
Well, we have the assessors who have, a ton of vehicles that used heavily at a certain part of the year, but most of the year they sit
Right.
vacant. I mean, that in my mind is a good option for a mileage reimbursement. We'll pay you 58 cents a mile or whatever the IRS.
yeah,
rate
whatever
is.
the IRS is.
Right.
Yeah, and then we don't have to pay the insurance and buy the vehicles. We don't have to maintain them and all that sort of stuff. But then that lowers the volume that's going to go through our garage. And so that may hurt us on that side too. So, I mean, it kind of cascades. It's a big thought.
Yes.
I guess I would say if we wanted to make a change like that, we ought to go back and look and and do some projections and see.
Well, if we went with the attorney's office, maybe we could just try it on them for a year. If it works out good, then we can start scaling it back.
Yeah, we could do that too. So would we pull the vehicles away from the other two? Or would we
Well, it's
just? do
up to
with this
me, I
one guy?
would, but I don't know if we dare make that decision without Harv in here.
Yeah, that's his portfolio, isn't it?
It is.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I think you're gonna have to pull it back from the other two, and I'm not sure it's worth the heart
Yeah.
attack to.
Why don't you leave the 7,000 in there for now, and this is a discussion we can have later on.
So I'll put it in there and we'll plan on giving him a used vehicle. That really won't cost the county that much because we already have.
But
it.
I would say if we're gonna do that, definitely should be a used.
Yeah, we'll give him a used. I'll make sure that's used.
I think you leave it in there and then,
Okay.
but I like the concept of going to.
So you got your high-end attorney pulling up this old beater piece of
Yeah.
crap.
Our surplus vehicles are fairly nice.
Are they?
Yeah,
He'll
Okay.
probably get a sheriff's vehicle, I assume.
Yeah, they're in good shape.
Okay.
Okay. And then we can look at that this next year and see if that's something we want to do, but I'd say that's a big change to the fleet. That's a change to the whole county.
Well, I think that's what we should look at from a policy standpoint. Where do we sit with, between the motor pool, our fleet and the ones that have their own cars? How do we make that determination? Who has to book one through motor pool versus have their own car?
Well, our break-even point's like 7,000 miles. Like we have to drive a vehicle 7,000 miles in order for it to be more cost efficient to own it outright
Right.
as the county as it does just to pay mileage allowance. And we don't have many vehicles to get that.
That's,
We have a lot of people that say they need it because they drive and they park and they work for 8 hours and then they drive back to the county. So it's not getting many miles on it, but it's being used all day is what they say. But in that case, I'd say, well, then let me pay you a mileage allowance. You get extra money. I mean, most of the time you're paying your car payment anyway, whether you're driving the extra miles or not. So that 58 cents a mile more than covers your additional cost of fuel,
Right.
so you actually get a little bit more that you get to keep.
Well, yeah, as from the employee's point of view, it helps him pay his insurance, it helps him with a car payment.
Mhm.
If he wants a little nicer vehicle, and
Yeah.
there's advantages.
so they're taking them home at night, driving here, basically parking them without going out during the day,
In some cases.
in some cases.
Maybe that's something we ought to look at. Maybe we ought to get a list of all
Yeah.
the people who are getting auto allowances or vehicles from the county and evaluate that.
We can do that. It would be a bit of time and effort. I don't know if we'd have enough time to do it before our
No,
final budget
no,
this year.
So I was gonna say, we actually included a tab with some instructions on our budget files this year for vehicles. And I think that it was overlooked and not a lot of time was put into
And
completing and getting the information, and maybe it's just because everyone was focused on trying to get the rest of the budget done at that time, and so maybe we try to do it in a time that's not in conjunction directly with the budget, and we may get a little
Yeah.
bit better response and better feedback.
Yeah, because most people just said, no, I need the vehicle, I need the vehicle. We had,
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3 people tell us they could turn in the vehicles all. And I don't think most people spend a ton of time looking at it.
Right.
Okay, well, we can do that out of the budget cycle and give
Yeah, I
better information
think so.
for our next cycle. Okay,
Well, and when you're paying someone, this is the other side of it too. Right now, you can't buy vehicles. If you want to buy, my son, Austin, just bought a brand new one Friday. And I says, so did you order it? And he said, that's what I had to do. And I says, what'd they tell you? 4.5 to 5.5 months. It'll be here. And he says, when it gets here, they said they'd probably offer me 500 more than I paid for it.
Yeah.
Because they can only get so many cars a year themselves. It's just crazy right now. So that's even more reason to let the employees drive their own vehicle and have us pay.
Yeah.
It's hard to get them.
Yep.
It is.
Of course, Fleet's told us that they've been back up on some, haven't they? Or was it
Yeah,
John?
that is true. No, that is correct.
I thought there was like 4 or 5 that
That
were
we have
back.
not gotten yet.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, in fact, weren't they trucks for the sheriff? I think that's where they end up being, trucks for the sheriff.
yeah, in fact, we did get a delivery of some trucks was in October, wasn't it?
Yes.
That we
Yeah,
ordered like a year ago.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So we're still having trouble getting stuff in. Our paramedic heavy rescue vehicle is gonna come in on time, but that was like that was months lead time.
Yeah.
We
That's,
still, we still haven't taken delivery of our dump truck either. That's been over a year.
yeah, that was over a year ago.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So that'll be something I'll put on.
Well,
list
the
to
one
look
we
at.
put on this year to buy, it'll be a year from there before it gets there.
Okay.
This is tough.
USU, we remember they came back and they said they had two coal options. One was like a $7,000 increase and one was a $24,000 increase. And we talked about it and everyone decided we were gonna do the $7,000 increase, not the 24. And then somehow it got communicated back to Naomi that it was the 24, not the 7. So I worked with Harvey on that. I think he got confused in how he said his email. Anyway, so I told him I would bring this back up just to confirm the decision of how much we want to give USU in terms of a COLA. Now, they are contractors, they're not county employees.
Right.
Right.
They asked for the $2 an hour that the county employees got. That would be the $24,000. And we said, well, we're going to give you the 2 or 3% increase that USU is giving you. We'll cover that in the contract. And that was the $7,000.
That's exactly what we did.
Yep. So I just wanted to confirm that decision because there was some confusion.
You know, Harv's got a soft heart.
He does, yeah. So we're covering the full COLA then.
Well, right now we're covering 7,000, not the 24.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm bringing
Yeah, and
it
you're
back up.
back here saying, are you sure that's what you want to do?
Well, I'm just confirming your decision because he understood it a different way.
That's not what I understood. We
No.
went out of our way to say, no, they're a contractor. They get their money from the people we contract
Well, we
with.
talked about that. How come we're not their employer? The state of Utah is an employer.
Yeah, well, USU is, yeah.
At USU.
Yeah, which is the state.
So I'm not sure why we're even giving them the 7.
Well, I understand every time they get their cost of living increase, they would pass that on to their contracts. That makes sense to me.
Right.
So that's what that $7,000 would represent.
The 7,000.
The 7,000, which we already funded.
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, that's the way I understand it. And I'm not a vote to change it.
yeah. So Harvey said to give him the other 17.
When he reached out to Naomi, he had a conversation with her. Naomi called me back saying, just to confirm, I got the full 24,000 after she talked to Harvey. And then I talked and I says, no, that's not what was in there. And so we had some emails back and forth. And I think Harvey just got confused in what he was saying. And there was a misunderstanding there. So I said, okay, well, I'll bring it back to the full commissioners and just confirm.
Or he's got a soft heart, yeah.
Well, I don't know which way that is.
Yeah. No, I'm still of the opinion that their contract, I'm okay with the 7, but I'm not okay with the 17.
Same here.
Okay, so I'm going to scratch out that
That's a no.
17.
Yeah.
Okay. And then
And,
Sean.
unless they can come in here and explain to us why we should be responsible for that, where they're not actually one of our county employees.
Well, I would argue if USU gives you a 5% increase or a 10% increase, then come back and show us that and negotiate the cost of the contract increase.
Yeah,
That makes sense. And
Well,
what
that's
we do
where-
with everybody else.
Exactly.
so I had a discussion with Naomi's boss. Actually, it was that same week we talked about it. It was a Utah State game. And I said, look, we can't approve an increase in your people's salary. They cut their checks, we don't. If you want to negotiate it, let's redo the contract. Come to us and say,
Right.
look, we need a 20,000 increase in our contract because it has to go here. That's a discussion to have,
Mhm.
not that we're gonna pay and that's probably what they're really trying to do. But they're really looking at it from the COLA standpoint rather than let's redo the contract.
Yeah, and I think what Naomi was saying is she thought that if we paid her more money, she could go back and say, well, they're willing to pay more money as long as you dedicate it to salary. So USU give us raises.
Well, that could be too.
But I mean, that's not normally how we don't do that with any other
I
contract.
think that's exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Just what you
Yeah.
said, Scott.
Yeah, but I mean, so that's really a policy decision. I wouldn't want to start doing that with every contractor that we have,
I wouldn't either,
right?
No,
including Naomi.
to me, that's backwards.
Okay,
If Utah
I agree.
State wants to give her the increase, then they should give her the increase. And then they should come to us and say, we've just approved this increase. We need 20,000 more in the contract with Weber County so we can cover it.
okay,
I think she's kind of going around it.
I agree. I think Gage is right on him.
okay, so we're leaving it at 7?
Yep.
Yeah.
And, okay, not 17, okay. Next one is the rent for the Weaver Center first floor and second floor. So I got those leases from Sean. Now, this was
Wow.
at $19 a gross, or $19 per square foot gross, not
Net.
usable, not net, but gross.
Oh, gross square footage?
gross square
We're gonna
footage.
be talking about this at 2:30 in a closed session.
Okay,
Okay,
So-
so the rate seemed high when I compared it with what Ulibarri's charging. What was in that lease initially seems high to me, but you'll know that better than
what,
I.
Ulibarri's?
So I asked Ulibarri, what's a commercial space going for nowadays? And $19 for gross square footage was high, he said.
That's high.
That's high. In Ogden, especially for this type of office, he said that's high.
I agree.
So
So I've got that contract. and
Okay.
We'll show you.
We haven't signed any leases, right?
No, we have not signed the lease. That's what I've got here is the lease agreement.
but that's how I came up with this $193,000. I took that $19 per square foot times the square foot that we would be renting plus the security deposit. That's how I came up with 193 to rent those two spaces in this building.
Do we know what the net square footage is?
Yes, we do. Approximately 4,430. Well, sorry, that's the gross rentable area. I do not have a net.
Okay. I was like,
Well, the difference between the gross and net, the gross is before the walls are all put in, right? There's very little difference between the gross and net, isn't there?
well, depends on what, if they included all the gross area, they may include the common area, the bathrooms.
No, that should be out.
Depends on what they consider
I
to be
thought it was
gross.
in here somewhere. I thought it was several hundred square feet different between the gross and the net.
I'll have to.
But I don't remember exactly where it's at. But I guess the question would be, if we're gonna lease that, 193 would be the upper end. Now, if you guys can negotiate the square footage price down lower, then obviously that number is lower,
Okay.
but. So that's the max, it would be 193,000.
I'm okay with that.
Well, we need to I know Mendoza has copies of his lease on these other spaces. We need to look at that.
Okay.
To
See
verify what those
What
are.
that is, okay.
Yeah, so I, two separate questions. One, are you okay approving the 193 is the upper amount to pay for?
If that's the
lease?
upper amount, I think we need to
Yeah.
get that down a little
So
bit.
whatever you guys decide in the
Yeah.
actual lease agreement is what we'll
Yeah.
pay. But I need to put it in the budget in order to sign the lease.
Yeah, he's just trying to finish the budget. So
Yeah.
you're gonna have this in, when are we doing the final budget here?
The 14th. So I'm having this meeting today instead of next week because I was told you weren't meeting next week.
That's right.
So
Correct.
that's why I'm doing it today. And then doing it on the 13th for the 14th wasn't enough time.
All right,
There's some
correct.
changes.
So
Okay.
what they're saying, 4413 RSF, 3932 USF,
How much usable?
3932.
So 3,900 out of the 4,400.
Yeah, so about 500 square feet.
Yeah. So that's, now according to what Randy sent me, if we look at our net after he pays us, we're like around 12 or 13. What does he pay us back for in terms of,
They pay us back for all of the common area maintenance.
okay,
Every year they pay us for that. All of the improvements, the Weaver Center, anything to do with the common area, cleaning.
Their share,
all of that.
their
Correct, they're
25%.
but just their share,
Yeah.
Correct, just their share.
yeah, so it doesn't really reduce our cost per square foot,
No, I don't think it does.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay, so the next two questions relate to the public hearing.
So Sean, you'll work on that.
Yes,
Okay.
yep. And we'll talk a little bit later today about that.
we're gonna talk about that at 2:00.
Yes, 2:30, yep.
So the library increase and the flood control tax increase, now you're gonna vote on that on the 14th. I guess my question is do you feel comfortable telling me whether or not that's gonna stay in the final budget at this point? The reason why, because if you pull it out on the 14th, I have to go back and adjust all the budgets to try to cascade that through. So we can't really, if you say no to the tax increase on the 14th, without telling me beforehand, I won't be able to have the budget ready for you on the 14th.
So you wanna know how we're gonna vote?
I do. I guess that's what I'm asking is, or do you want to direct me to put in different amounts and work that through the final budget?
I don't think we need to, I think it's a done deal.
I do too.
Yeah, it was just as a side note, that was the best public hearing I've ever been to in terms of civility. And I mean, there were some people that were passionate and upset, but there was no personal attacks on the commissioners really.
Yeah.
It was,
Oh, there's that one guy that tried to get down in the dirt a
Yeah.
little bit, but he almost looked foolish after he'd done it. You know, because he said, well, there's ways to do this and that. I kind of followed up saying, yeah, you're right, we could do this, but this is gonna be the result. We could do that too,
Good.
but this will be the result.
Yeah, I thought overall it was pretty, pretty civil.
Yeah, it was very similar. And I'm comparing it to the ones that we did this, where there were personal attacks and accusations of fraud and, I mean, it was just ugly. Anyway, so I'm
And I
gonna,
watched from home and the quality is phenomenal. Sound quality was
Was it
great,
good?
very easy to follow.
That's
It
good.
it was really good. And before the meeting started, I could hear your conversations on the side.
Good.
You know, the mics were hot.
We better watch that.
Yeah,
But we very seldom say anything out of character.
yeah, there wasn't anything
We're pretty
weird,
good.
but it was great. It was.
As long as we mind our P's and Q's, we'll be okay.
okay, so I'm gonna leave those in there at the original amounts we discussed in the tentative budget.
Yeah,
Yes.
And then just as an FYI, the only other change that we will have is we do pull down the payroll data and we'll update salaries and wages. So payroll usually adjusts up or down no more than $30,000. I think that was the biggest swing. But you know, if Sean's hired somebody new, we're gonna budget at that new position, not at the old position. Great, that makes sense.
No, say that again.
So if you have turnover between the time when we pulled the data, the payroll data for the original budget till now, you know, we've probably had 15 people quit and 15 new people get hired. And so instead of budgeting at the old rate, we're gonna budget at the new rate.
Oh, sure.
So it's just
That
minor
makes sense.
changes.
And we will have a couple of changes that are grant related with the health department. They've had some additional grant funding that's been received, so we'll have some of those changes as well.
Yep. So those are the only thing, and I can give you a detailed list of those if
Sure.
you want. Commissioners normally in the past haven't really cared too much, but we'll have a list of everything that's
Oh,
changed.
we're okay.
Okay, two other really quick things. So one, I have, this is for the 2021 budget. It's a budget change. And what it's doing is it's allowing me to transfer up to $7 million from the general fund to the capital projects fund and up to $1 million from the library to the capital projects fund if they're over the fund balance limits. Does that make
Yeah,
sense? So if they're not over the fund balance limits, I'm not going to transfer.
right.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now with the library, once it goes in there, it's stuck for the library, but with the other capital projects that we have some leeway if we needed it back. we could.
So 7 million on the capital
Up,
project.
up to 7 million from the general fund and up to $1 million from the library into capital projects. And then the last thing, the health department reached out to me and said, hey, we have a grant that will allow us to fund bonuses essentially for employees. And so they want to fund, they're calling it a retention bonus. Basically, we had a lot of people that worked really hard during COVID, and so we want to give them some more money, and we have a grant that will allow us to do it. So they want to give 10 people $1,000, and they want to give 60 people $250. We did not do that with anybody else in the county, even though that, you know, bonus pay or hazard pay or whatever was allowable under the CARES Act. None of the commissioners seemed interested in that when we did that. So I'm not for or against this, other than we've already kind of made a decision not to do one-time bonuses, but their argument is that they had some salaried people that had to work a lot of overtime and they didn't get any hourly compensation for that. All their other employees did get paid and paid overtime if they worked overtime. So I told them that I would reach out to you and talk to you about that to see if you wanted to allow them. This would be in addition to the pay for performance and in addition to any salary increases they just got, so the $2 plus the 3%. So this would be another $1,000 bonus or another $250 bonus on top of all that.
Well, I don't necessarily like that, but the problem of it is Weaver Human Services just approved that same situation here a week ago in their board meeting that they're gonna take it. They got some state money, probably the same money,
Yeah.
and then it'd give $1,000 bonuses. I spoke against it. But I got outvoted and they said, anyway, at the end of the day. So I don't know how we can,
That was a week ago.
yeah,
Was I there?
I don't think you were on that meeting. No, Harv and I were there. Harv said, give it to him. I said, no, I think take the money, but I wanted him to take the money and basically.
So this was last Friday.
Last Friday, yeah. Well, a week ago Friday, yeah,
A week ago
a
Friday,
week ago Friday.
19th.
We did not give any of our sheriff's office employees one-time bonuses. And nor did we give any of our, other.
Oh, I
frontline
was in that
workers.
opioid settlement.
You're in,
I
that's
wasn't there,
that's right.
wasn't there that day, but I would have voted no too.
So that's,
So
what-
you and Harv got outvoted.
well, no, Harv outvoted me. He got, of course, he got those other people all wanted it because they're voting for their own salaries. I said, hey, take the money, but I wanted it spread on an hourly basis so that the lower people got more and the upper people, actually on a percentage got less. But, so I don't know, I don't know.
Well, this kind of stuff just wrinkles me a little. I mean, I can feel the hair on the back of my neck standing up. I don't like doing this. It shows favoritism in a way. And I struggle with it. They've been well compensated this year. We went out of our way as a county to make sure they have. And so I think they should take the money, but I don't think they ought to give it out.
Well, I mean, it's awarded to them and I don't know what their other intentions are to spend it. I mean, and I'm not sure, I mean, I worry about the precedent that this would set for the other departments.
Well, me too. But
But-
if I was an employee working over at one of these others and heard about this, I'd be ticked.
Well,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about, but we've already made that, the health, or Weaver Human Services already made that decision.
Well,
they're doing
Weaver
the same
County
exact
did.
thing.
Yeah, so, and that's really kind of where do we want to go? Do we want to bring it into Weaver County? Because I could see if we do it for one Weaver County, I mean, Weaver Morgan Health Department's a separate entity, but it's still a department of Weaver County. Then would the sheriff's office want to do it and then so really but I do understand their argument too, that our salaried employees had to work a lot more and didn't get any extra compensation for it. So I told them I'd present it to you and let you guys decide. I think I mean, we can bring Sarah in here. Sarah's aware of it as well.
I would like to get Sarah's opinion on this too.
I do too.
Okay, do you want me to call her? She was.
Yeah.
Let me go grab her really quick.
Yeah, I want to talk to her
I mean,
about
where
this.
it's a grant, I kind of feel a little bit like Scrooge, but I hate setting that precedent, but I got outvoted by Harvey, so,
No kidding. Doggone, now I wish I'd have been there.
yeah.
Well, like I said, I'm in the middle of negotiating that opioid settlement. That was pretty important.
Oh, yeah, you had to be at that one.
Doggone.
She's walking over right now.
Yeah.
Are they looking for an answer on that ASAP?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know if their grant runs out at the end of this calendar year or what, but
And that, yeah, they want to do that for 2021, right?
yeah, they want to do it for 2021.
How much, what?
So is this
total
a
dollars
use
we
and
talking?
lose grant?
I don't know if it's use or lose. I can go back and double check.
Well, Sarah will probably know. If she's been over this, so.
Yeah.
She'll probably be able to tell us when she wants.
So it's a total of $25,000.
No,
25,000.
10 at 1,000 and then 60 at 250.
so they said it's going to be 32.5.
Oh.
So they're doing it, yeah, so. But they're adding benefits to it too. So they're doing 10 at 1,000 and then they're saying that's 13,000 because they're adding 30%. Hello.
I'm back.
We can't keep you out of our life, as hard as we try.
I don't know if I feel special or not.
You need to
Feels
make a
special.
decision for the health department.
That's right.
So this is the bonus that we talked about.
Yeah,
I told you I was gonna call you over.
yeah. I mean, on one level, part of me is like, you know what, they should be able to manage their own people and their own funds if they want to give bonuses. But then on the other hand, nobody else has that opportunity, and I didn't use the right words, but like I told Scott, to just give people bonuses because you have money, not necessarily because there's like a rhyme or reason to do so, seems like a little bit, I don't want to say misuse of public funds, but you're just spending money to spend money to get rid of it. So I don't know.
So this grant that they have,
Yeah.
do you know anything about it?
Mm-mm. Do
So you don't know
about-
if it's a use or lose or
No.
where it came from or anything?
Mm-mm.
I mean, I can do some more research to find out if it's a use or lose, but I guess my argument would be is it doesn't matter, right? Is it a good policy to do for the county or not? I mean,
Yeah.
Are we just spending it to spend the federal dollars because we
Right.
have them? If that's the case, then I mean, we could make a lot of decisions like that with the ARPA dollars. Let's give
Yeah.
everybody a bonus just to spend it, you know? what I
That's
mean?
true.
It's-
We could have done that with the ARPA and done
Yeah.
bonuses across, and we chose not to. And so maybe that same principle should apply, and that's maybe a more fair. We didn't allow it for anyone else or with any other.
But
funds.
that $2 increase, that ends up being a $4,000 and that's ongoing.
Sure.
Mhm.
That's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like we skimped here.
No, No, I think they're just genuinely trying to get rid of money or to use money that they have. I mean, but Brian didn't articulate to me or didn't do it well in terms of who he was giving it to and why. And so my first comment to him was, you'd have to explain to me who, what, where, when, why, and the exact amount. But they kind of came up with a random, they gave Scott. Some
Yeah.
people get,
So what Gage says, Weaver Human Services just did this, the exact same thing.
Okay.
So they've apparently got the same kitty.
I'll bet it's the same pot of money.
I'm sure they did, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could see where it could be possibly justified is for the salaries, just because they worked a ton of extra
Right.
time and didn't get any.
That's true. I mean, there's no denying that they've had it harder than probably most of us in dealing with COVID. I mean, so if they, I mean, it's a fair statement. Should they get a bonus because they worked?
If in fact they did that, which means you'd have to go back and have Brian do some justification.
Yeah, he needs to have some
So-
method of measurement to determine,
Yeah,
here are the dollar amounts, and if you did X, Y, and Z, you get it. You can't just pick 6 people and give them $1,000 and
that's,
20. and give
so where
them
I'm at, I'm gonna say I'm okay with it based upon Sarah having a discussion that she feels that Brian justifies that it's within reason because those people did put in more hours, but just to give the $1,000 out because they happen to be an employee, I'm not for that. So
Okay.
that's where I'm at.
I hate to be the guy that always is a downer here.
Naysayer.
I know, I am. I'm a no vote. This just wrinkles me. This makes no sense in my brain. And so if they're gonna lose it, I'd vote yes, but if they're not gonna lose it, then I don't want to. Man, we just give them a wonderful increase. And we justified that. In our tax increase, we talked to people about that. Yeah, I'm a no vote. I'm sorry.
Would make sense.
Need a tiebreaker. Well, and so just to be clear, I'm a no vote unless there's justification.
Okay.
That,
So I'll go back, I'll ask him if the grant is one time,
I-
when the grant ends.
Right.
And if we have 6 months, does that mean we don't do it? I mean, like, because every grant's gonna have an end date onto it.
right.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't,
Well, what's the grant for? Is it a use or lose?
so
That's
this is,
something I gotta know.
so this was for supplies from the CDC. They changed the document or the allowability criteria to allow it to be used for salaries and wages in addition to supplies, so they could use it for bonuses. And so that's what they want to do. They're like, well, we don't need to spend all this on supplies, so let's instead
The
shift some
Center
of it.
for
and do-
Disease Control,
Yeah.
CDC gave this out.
More importantly, does it concern all of us that the federal government's giving out all this money? to
Yeah.
Random things all over the place?
Yeah, when's it gonna
It's almost
stop?
Scary.
Yeah,
Oh, my goodness.
no, it's crazy. Well, that's where I'm at.
So I'll just say, get a better justification to it. Give me some more information about when the grant expires, and I probably have that. I just didn't bring it with me.
Yeah,
Then
And then
Come
we'll
back
bring
and
it
twist
back.
Harvey's arm.
Okay.
yeah, you got to twist Harv's arm.
That's all you need from me?
Yep.
Okay.
So that's-
It's been real, it's been fun,
Yeah.
it's not
Okay.
real fun.
Come back when you have more time.
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, we're moving right through this today.
We are, but, I tell you, I really get uptight at this, you know?
I agree.
The fact that federal government, CDC is giving all this money out, and obviously it was a lot more than they needed. So now we're gonna change it and say, well, you can use it for pay increases too, if you want.
Yeah.
Hi, gentlemen, have a seat.
How you guys?
So is this a closed session?
This is the discussion regarding redoing precincts, right?
This is the precinct, 2:00.
Oh, 1:30.
Yeah, we're late with you, sorry.
That's all right.
Okay,
Money talks these days, right?
yeah, so who's gonna lead this discussion out? Okay,
Daniel's gonna do it.
Let me just make one comment, if that's okay. So Daniel's prepared the precincts. We want you to look at it.
mhm,
What we're hoping to get out of this today is just kind of a good direction. If there's changes in the way that we're doing things, if we know now, because we're under a pretty tight timeline, we're gonna need to approve these on December 14th. So if there's any changes in direction or anything like that, it's kind of a conceptual meeting. And the important thing to remember too is when we talk redistricting, that's done at a state level. What we're really talking about here is just precincting. The things that we do don't affect who gets to vote on what or how representation is divvied out amongst the county. So this is simply basically just drawing the precinct boundaries. That's
For
pretty
the
much all
parties?
for the county for voting.
But
So
parties
this is-
will use it,
yeah, parties
use
will
it.
use it,
Parties are using that.
but
Yes.
that's not why we do it.
okay,
Right.
But basically, we're grouping together groups of people that get the same
Sure.
ballot is essentially what we're doing. So it's
All
really not
right, roll them out
redistricting, even though
here.
that's what we call it, so.
So just as a refresher, the county commission has three responsibilities in this process. First is to create new precincts throughout the entire county. The second is to divide the county into voter participation areas, which is only used in conjunction with county initiatives or referendums. And the third responsibility is the realignment of the Weaver School Board districts. So, as Ryan, excuse me. So
and how many Weaver School Board districts are there?
there's seven.
7.
So we
Okay.
draw those?
Yes.
Okay.
So last week,
I
our
forgot
office,
that.
along with Cameron Johnson from the county GIS department, we started mapping out these areas, and I'm happy to say that as of today, we are almost done. We're complete with most of it. We just have a few odds and ends to clean up, and then we'll be done with this process for you. So going into this process, we had two main goals. The first goal was to adhere to any of the requirements per Utah code, obviously.
Sure.
And the second one was to create precincts and districts that actually make sense. So if you looked at it on a map, you say that makes sense. And part of that is by using natural dividers, like roadways, railroads, those types of things. So that's kind of where we're looking at. So
So on the school board, was there a requirement to keep those balanced by people,
yes.
by population?
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about precincts
Gage,
first.
slide over here.
So the criteria as far as precincts go is each precinct can have a maximum of 1,250 registered voters or active registered voters in the precinct. So that's really the only requirement.
How many
1,250
registered?
registered voters.
Got it.
So that there's maximum allowed on that. So
Okay,
this is Far West City. Far West City will be divided into 5 precincts. You can see that the numbers that are there, that's the actual number of voters. So you can see that all of the number of voters in Far West are under the
Okay.
max allowed. We also used, some of the main dividing points that we used there were 2,700 north, 20,000 west. And then that area between those two, that's actually canal.
this is a canal.
Yeah, so
This is,
that
right.
boundary is a canal.
Okay, got it.
So that's why those are our natural boundaries
Okay.
that we try to stick with.
Yep.
Far West is a pretty straightforward city,
Yeah.
Yeah,
as with most of the cities in Weaver County. So is there anything on there that jumps out at you problems, good things?
I'm okay with that.
No, I mean, you haven't overloaded size wise. I mean, all pretty
Exactly.
close. Looks to me geographic. You made some good decisions here in terms of
That's what we try
division.
to do, exactly. So as straightforward as this is, there are some challenges that we had. So if you go to the next map, if you don't mind. So Marriott Slaterville,
So Far West is good.
Far West is good. We like Far West.
Yeah.
For this remote. So Marriott Slaterville. When the legislature drew their legislative boundaries, they used I-15 as a boundary between Senate districts, and they used 12th Street as a boundary between House districts. So those all converge at the intersection of I-15 and 12th Street, and it basically creates 4 quadrants that have 4 different combinations of House and Senate districts.
So you're right here.
Right there.
Yeah.
What they did not take into account was that there is a little section of Marriott Slaterville that resides south of 12th Street.
Yeah.
And because precinct boundaries
cannot cross legislative boundaries. Mary Slaterville now has to be 4 precincts, and you'll notice that we have one precinct that has 600 voters
Yeah,
and one that has 5 voters. And there's nothing we can do about that
really?
because of the ledge district, because of the way the legislature drew their boundaries.
Precinct has 5 voters.
So you,
Yeah.
because of the way they drew it, you can't take those 5 and include
Because,
them.
because
That's incredible.
Huh. That's crazy.
So all the gerrymandering aside, with that, them following city boundaries in some logical places, it really messes things up on our end. Really some simple
Yeah,
philosophical changes, just in how they look at it, of saying, okay, we're this close population, let's just go to the city boundary. It would have fixed that, but we can't cross boundaries, and to put other people in with the city doesn't make sense.
So does
either.
this split house districts?
so these are the same House district, those are the same House district, but the Senate district is met along the freeway.
Okay.
that's the way to
this-
do.
So this.
And you know, they create the Senate districts first, then the House districts. And this is life.
That's how it is.
If
Yeah,
they just overlaid the two maps and looked at them together, you could make some minor
Yeah,
adjustments.
could have.
And this same situation, just for information, this also plays out in Harrisville, West Haven, and in Pleasant View.
really?
So in Pleasant View City alone, Pleasant View City is now divided into 3 House districts and 2 Senate districts.
Really?
Just Pleasant View City,
3 house districts?
yes. Yes.
That makes no sense.
And so to account for all of those different combinations,
Yeah,
the precincts in Pleasant View is increasing from 6 to 11,
Well, that makes no sense.
just because of all those different combinations.
I don't understand why somebody on that committee didn't think of some of those things.
Yeah, it makes no sense to split it 3 ways.
5 ways are right, and taking the
Yeah.
Senate districts with it.
All right,
Yeah.
Hooper.
The other
Okay.
challenge the other challenge specifically with Mary Slater bill, now you have a precinct that has 5 voters in an election. When we give the results, we give them by precinct.
Right.
And if only 2 people vote, or sometimes 1 person will vote out of the 5, all of a sudden that's a constitutional private vote issue. And so what we actually have to do is suppress on our reports. We have to suppress the results for that precinct, which then leads people to questioning, why are you not showing
Right.
Right.
results for, you're hiding something. Anyway, it's just another complication that comes from having these small precincts. We try to avoid them as much as we can, but you just can't.
And so the other challenge that we have, it deals with our special service districts.
7.
So there are 8 service
yeah.
districts in Weber County that use a general election to get their board of trustees, and Weber County facilitates those elections. So when we're building our precincts, we also have to pay attention to special service district boundaries.
Yeah.
As well as everything else, to ensure that everybody gets the correct ballot. So Hooper is an example. Hooper City has 3 different water districts. So to make this easy, the purple area is 1 water district, and the rust area is a 2nd water district. So we've created our precincts based off of those service district boundaries. But you'll notice right here, there is that one little purple rectangle in the
Right,
middle of the
yeah.
gray, right?
Yeah, why is that?
So that one property is the same water district as this,
Oh,
not its neighbors.
what we doing?
Even though it's in the middle of it.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
Because service district boundaries do not follow logical election boundaries at all. So with that situation, we have 2 choices. We can either do what we've done here on the map, where we have put that one property in the same precinct as the rest of the water district, but that does create this island that when you look at it on the map, it looks a little strange.
Yeah, it does.
The other option we have would be to take that one property and make it its own precinct. But then we run into that issue that Ricky just addressed. Now we have 1 precinct with 1 voter. Now we're suppressing that result every single time we have an election.
Mhm.
So our preference is to put that one in, to put that in the same precinct as the rest of the water district to create that island. Do you have a so what
Given the
are your
alternative,
thoughts
yeah,
really
I-
on those?
Makes no sense to have 1 person.
Yeah, you don't say how many people live in that.
There's some
one.
different ones. There's one, there's some.
Is there just one in there?
There's 1 person.
Makes no sense to have 1.
No, I agree. Just put it back there.
So to that point, this plays out also in West Haven and Roy, but at a much greater scale. So if we follow the same logic that I think we're agreeing on, when you see the final precinct maps for West Haven and Roy, you're gonna see 3 or 4 precincts that have really odd boundaries. They don't follow natural boundaries. They look like spider webs. And there are some islands, there are some disjointed parts to that. If you're okay with that, we prefer that because that just puts as many people with the same ballot in the same precinct.
To me, that's the best way to go.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Give the same,
Right.
the end game is people that are voting should get the same ballot.
Right.
And if that's easier, which appears to me it would be.
And if we created separate precincts, they'd still be islands.
Right.
Right.
It's just now they'd
Yeah.
be their own island instead of joining forces with similar voters.
Yeah.
And so this approach will greatly reduce the number of these smaller precincts that we have. But we're still going to have those small precincts because of the ledge district lines.
Right.
So that doesn't clear that area, but it clears this area from what we currently have.
Well, I have no problem with what you've discussed and
No.
shown us.
No, good.
And
I
there's
think
some
it's very good
precedent
what
for the
you've done.
islands and things like that. Current precincts that we've had, like in Roy with the unincorporated pockets and North Ogden. So this
Right.
isn't something new, and it's just an attempt to try to keep people together as
Yeah.
much as possible to have a common interest, whether that be a water district or, we're not crossing city boundaries with those kind of things. It'll all be contained within an area that's pretty similar, but there may be a couple blocks between one
So
precinct. to
I like
another.
what you've done.
And it's important for us that if we're gonna have these oddities with it, that we have a valid reason why
Yeah.
it's done.
Yeah,
So
there'll be-
it's an easy explanation to have to tell someone who says.
There'll
"Why
be
did you
people
do
that
that?"
question it, so we just have to have a valid reason. Yeah.
So that's precincts. The next area would be the voter participation areas. So Utah code requires us to divide Weber County into 8 different areas that must be substantially equal in population. So when we created the voter participation areas a couple of years ago for the first time, based off of the conversation that we had with the commission, is it was agreed that the best approach would be to create these areas by grouping cities together. So for instance, South Ogden, Washington Terrace, and Uinta are all in one area. North Ogden, Pleasant View, Harrisville are in the voter participation area. So unless you have any objections to that, when we create these new VPAs, we're going to use that same approach by just grouping.
Why do you
cities
need
together.
those?
For referendum or initiatives, county initiatives.
Okay.
So basically, if there's a county initiative, then there has to be a certain percentage of the signatures in those petition packets have to come
Oh.
from each of the
So
areas.
it has to do with like a referendum
Yeah.
for signature.
It's kind of like the state concept with an initiative, how you have so many signatures out
Yeah,
of the different
okay.
Senate districts.
Right.
It's the same.
All right.
So
concept,
it's
just
probably
all-
something that we won't ever use, but we have to have it and we'll have it
Yeah.
ready in case it's used. So the third area would be the Weber School Board districts. So based off of Utah code, they will be divided into 7 board districts and they must be substantially equal in population as well. 3 weeks ago, I met with Dr. Stevens, Robert Peterson, who is a part of their administration, and Joe Ritchie, who is on the actual school board. And I presented them with 2 different proposals of how to realign their districts. We had a very good conversation. There was one proposal that they liked more than the other. So we have used that proposal to realign their council districts. So when you do get
Well,
that,
what is that proposal? Can you explain that
it's
to us?
it's almost identical to what they have now.
Okay.
All we've done is adjusted borders based off to
Based on
account for,
size.
to account for the population.
Yeah.
So really not much has changed at all from what they currently
Okay.
have. So when you get that final map to approve that final map, you will have the support of the school board district on that map.
Yeah,
You're giving them what they want.
yeah. The school board's approved it. I think they're the ones.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was kind of the
Really
direction
care.
we got from you a couple months ago.
Yeah, so these are. So basically, for timeline going forward is we're gonna spend this week just cleaning up the rest of the little odds and ends. Ricky and Ryan are gonna do a real thorough vetting of all the precincts one final time. And then we will present to you the final maps at the work session on the 13th. So 2 weeks from today, we'll give you the final maps of everything. And then we'll ask for you to approve all of those on the commission meeting on the 14th. And then we'll be done with it.
Great, great. Do you have to have any time for the public to see this?
Nope,
Okay,
there's no requirement for that.
all right,
So we'll just get it done.
great. No any issues then.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you, gentlemen.
appreciate your work.
Thanks very much.
And
Good work.
thank you.
Elizabeth Carlin came in today. I
What
think Elizabeth Carlin. She
Oh.
said, I think they redistricted me out of my current district. But she was all, she thought it was a conspiracy.
So it was conspiracy. theory.
But she stayed in ledge 11.
So they cut her out of the boundaries, huh? Or she thought they did.
Yeah.
That would have been funny.
Yeah.
All right. When the next one's in. So this is a closed session, this one.
I thought we were at 2:30.
No, the closed session's
Oh, no, it's at 2, you're right.
2:00, right?
Yeah,
County land parcels.
So this was going to be a discussion with some parcels in Marriott Slaterville, but that will take place on the 13th.
Okay,
So this is going to be a discussion about the lease agreement, but it is a closed session.
Hi,
Okay.
Brian. Do you gentlemen
thank
want
you.
to turn off
Hold
the
on, let-
video and the recording?
hold on,
For your
let us
closed
get a
session?
motion.
Okay.
Motion to close, and I'll second it, all in favor, say aye.
aye.
Aye. Okay, now you can, all right, Gage,
Motion to come out of closed session.
and a second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, we're back in business. All right, we're at our 2:30 meeting today to discuss Smart Acre subdivision. Scott Perks, Rick Grover, Charlie, Liam, David Lalolli, you David?
Yes, sir.
Ah, so you're Austin's age.
Yeah.
Max. Glad
A
to
year
meet you.
younger, but yeah.
A year younger?
Yeah.
Yeah, they both knew you.
Yeah, we ran around a little bit.
Yeah, that's what they said.
Yeah.
All right, and Pat. All right, well, who's gonna start? Charlie, you?
Happy to,
Go ahead.
Commissioners. You guys have seen this already as after the planning commission looked at it. We just wanted to bring it up with to you guys to get your warm and fuzzy on whether or not we should get it on the agenda. One of the things that the applicant had requested at the time was to modify the concept plan just a little bit from what the planning commission had seen. And so this is what the planning commission recommended approval for. And it's one of the pages that you have in your packet there. So RE 15 on up against 2700. And then RE 20 closer to the river, and then C2 commercial zone across the street frontage of Highway 39 there. If you look at this map here, this is a more detailed conceptual site plan from the applicant. And essentially, what we're looking at here is a little bit more of the C2 zone that kind of wraps around behind those two parcels that aren't part of the project. In my understanding, and David, correct me if I'm wrong, is you've already been working with those landowners and they're comfortable with that change. But other than that, everything that runs across the frontage is the street-oriented commercial that the planning commission had approved, as you can see here. And then they've got kind of a blend. So where you see the RE 20 and the C2, there's a little bit in between that is the multifamily. And the planning commission had recommended approval with multifamily in that C2 zone. And so we just have to modify essentially through the development agreement and put a provision in there that says that you can have multifamily in the C2 zone. So I worked it out with the applicant where this is street-oriented commercial space. So along 12th Street there, they'll have to do whatever improvements they need to do for 12th Street, turn lanes and whatever needs to happen at that intersection to satisfy UDOT. And then within that right of way, they'll build a pathway or a 6-foot wide sidewalk. Beyond that pathway or sidewalk is going to be street-oriented retail space on the ground floor. And then they'll have their driveways that come in and then parking in the back. So the idea is to kind of shape the street with good architectural design, good architectural features. Kind of like what we're doing in the Ogden Valley, except for we're not looking at putting any parking out on 12th Street.
Well, Charlie, how big are these lots?
The lots that you see here, they've got them pretty well laid out to the RE 20,000 square feet and the RE 15 zone. Which you see here, but there is a provision. So we didn't go through here. This isn't a formal subdivision application. And so these lot lines may need to change. So there's a provision in the development agreement I wrote that said, we all agree that this is conceptual in nature and they need to follow whatever the zone standards are. So those lot lines may need to move around, but the colored area is the area that they're most concerned with because there's a little bit more.
I'll go next page. So that piece of property right there, the county.
Yeah, yeah, Yeah.
Well, they've still got to come in and negotiate with us.
yeah, I'm with you.
So that's part of this, part of the question is whether or not you guys as commissioners are comfortable with a sale or a swap or whatever you guys choose to do. I did talk to our attorney's office and I talked to procurement just to make sure that we don't have to go through any specific process. You guys can choose who you sell this to, these properties to. I think there are 2 or 3 of them that the county owns there, if you choose to.
Well,
do
it's
so.
one big piece, but I think it's in a couple of
Different parcels.
parcels.
Two separate, they're
Yeah.
contiguous, aren't they?
Yeah, yep. And are you guys aren't looking to pick up the county's property and marry Slaterville all across the river, are you?
We don't really have a reason to.
Yeah, we own some on the opposite side of the river. too.
Right.
Yeah.
Sean already knows, I'm gonna buy that from the county. I want that.
Where is it, over here?
Yeah,
Like this piece here?
Yeah, it is, that piece, right? It's just the one.
Yeah, it's
Just
a
the one.
good size piece.
So how many acres do we have there, Sean?
16 if you count what's on the other side of Mary Slaterville, so probably.
What do you
12.
want it for?
It's a good place to build a home right there, right along the river.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
You know, you ought to look at it too. We've realized we've lost about 3 or 4 acres of land to the river.
Oh, I know, and they
Yeah,
lost.
so-
When I was down there the other day, I was looking over there and there's a big old hunk that's falling off
Yeah.
that. Hey, you're right.
But yeah, so the square footage might be, actually different, but
I agree.
anyways.
So, Commissioners, if I may, on those properties, I would say I don't think that the county, at least me representing the roads division,
Right.
I don't think that we have an issue selling that property as long as we have somewhere immediately to replace it. So we have a place to move all of the material we have stockpiled there.
You know how
exactly.
general contractors stockpile rough material? Well, we do that down there. Plus, when we get truckloads or parcels of miscellaneous crap, asphalt, different stuff like that, rock and brick, we take it down there and dump it, and then we cover it over.
Yeah.
And it's just a continual process.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any issue with that. Yeah, I want to have another home to go to before we sell our existing home. And we can't, I'm not willing.
So
to-
you guys still
Give it a price.
plan on going east with the sewer across the river?
Yeah.
So
Taking
you've been-
it from Mary Slaterville.
Right, so you've talked to this guy then that owns that property?
Yeah, Bill Morris, or
Uh-huh.
Bob Morris.
Yeah, Bob.
Yeah.
Bill's, yeah.
Yeah, we talked to
Bob's,
him last week and we're still trying to work out some details to get that piece of his.
yeah, he won't break that apart.
He's closer.
He's getting real
He's
close.
getting really close.
Is he?
Yeah, we hope to have it lined up before we get to the county council meeting.
So are you thinking about swapping us,
Well,
or you want to use that
we
parcel?
prefer to use that. That's pretty good ground for us, but
Yeah,
I know Charlie had mentioned some things, about what the county's looking for, so.
well, we're just
We're
looking
open
for a
books.
piece that's central to the county, and we'd like to stay as close to 12th because so much of our traffic goes east and west.
Yeah.
We go east up Kane and we go west out there, and so we'd like to stay as close to 12th as we can. And this is just a nice little funky piece there. And you get, if you've been watching it, which I'm sure you have, you've been noticing the post is dumping there. And they're just slowly filling it in, and the county would probably do the exact same thing. We would build something on front and then just keep filling it in until we eventually got it full and put a wall or something along the river to protect it.
Yeah.
It would just be a parcel that we'd replace our roads with.
Yeah, and that's mainly like a roads department where you put your road shop.
Yeah, no more than that. And it's not that it was along the river or anything else. It was the fact that it was the way the road turns right there, kind of a little slight turn.
And didn't EK Bailey lose a truck there
I don't know,
this year?
but from sitting right there, it's easy to see both ways. You can see if the road clear to make a turn. So it's easy right there to turn on and off. It's safe. It'd be
Oh, you're
easy.
talking about 12th Street.
Yeah,
I
I'm
mean,
talking.
into your pit, you guys, they lost a truck there. I mean, they got it, but.
Oh, did
The
they?
truck tipped over.
Into our pit.
Well, when you turn in off
The
of 2800,
the property we own back there.
Oh, did they lose one there?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah, it wasn't a good thing for them.
Into the river?
No, he luckily fell on our property side.
Oh,
That
did
road's pretty narrow coming in,
he?
and
Not
he took
that
a little
narrow.
sharp, and
Hell, if a guy can't hit that road,
Well,
he shouldn't be driving
he
that.
had a 40-foot,
Oh,
what do you
did he?
call it? Yeah, side
Okay.
door,
Wow, big trail.
yeah.
Well, anyway, yeah, so that's the only reason I picked that property, and I knew it was for sale, and
Yeah.
it seemed commonsensical that he would cut it off the other piece.
Well, and you know him, he wants more than top dollar.
Oh,
for
yeah.
it.
Well, yeah, in fact,
So-
we offered him 65 or something like
Yeah,
that.
It's not even in his.
And he said, no, and he was asking 75 at the time. He said, oh, I'm gonna change it to 100,000.
Yeah, we're north of it.
Are you?
Yeah, that's what he wants. So, and we got an appraisal on your land and it came in right about 50 an acre. So, I mean,
Yeah.
that's reasonable. But he obviously has much bigger goals and different desires for his money that he takes. And his goal is to move it all at once. He doesn't want to break it up. He wants to move
Yeah.
it at once and
Well, that's what he told
Can't
us.
blame
He
him.
said, we won't
Yeah.
break out a piece. And it's like, man, they're on different
Yeah.
sides of the river. What do you mean you won't break it up? Yeah.
well, and we're okay to pay him whenever he's ready to take the money. So that's not an issue. But there is some things, the one thing that's in the agreement now is the trails. And that's quite an expense if it's gonna cover that whole thing. If there's any way we can negotiate helping us out with the cost of the trails / swapping land, I don't know how that would look, but.
So there's a few things in the agreement to that extent. So there is a trail that's going to run along the river. There's a trail that will connect the river to 12th Street if it doesn't go along that corner. And then there'll be a trail that will run down 2700 and a trail that will run across 12th Street. So that's one. And then in the agreement, there is a commitment for a 4-acre park that we've asked for. Whether that goes to the park.
4-acre park?
Mhm. Just a small park that is
Small
immediately.
park, 4 acres is the whole freaking city block.
It gives the ability for some soccer fields in there. Yeah, that's for sure. And that'll be right adjacent to the parkway. So someone can ride their bike down the parkway and get to that park.
So would that be in West Weaver?
If so, this is the question. What I have in the development agreement is that an HOA will operate and maintain it until either a park district or another district picks it up or Marriott Slaterville annexes it.
So Scott Van Leeuwen told me the other night, you've been in and talked to him and that they're considering this again. He said, last time I told them, we talked about it, he said, oh, we don't want anything to do with that property. And now apparently you've softened him up.
Oh, that wasn't very soft.
Wasn't terribly soft, but they did say, yeah, we're thinking about it. That's what Bill said.
Yeah.
But we need to make arrangements for some park out there because they've been working on that for 10 years now.
Yeah.
Well, the only reason.
And if we have a park, you gotta have water with it.
But we do have that in the agreement.
So
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want any 4-acre parks without water.
Check that again.
That's not a park.
You don't want a decimal.
That's a piece of dirt.
Yes.
Yeah, if it'll be a park, let's have water.
In the agreement, we say that the park could be used in part for stormwater detention in some places. So if there's a soccer field or whatever, you can fill it.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, we'll
And
get that too.
a playground and a tree line pathway that goes around the outside of the 4 acres. So that is one giving. The trails is the other giving that the developer is going to offer.
Charlie, one question on that park. Is that a 4-acre continuous park? Contiguous.
That was
Meaning,
the,
is it all together?
that was the
That's
intention.
the-
Yeah, but I mean,
I didn't know if there's a way to
we could probably break.
include it as part of some of the trail or something.
And we could probably break it up if we needed to. I mean, I think a linear park would be fine as well. You're just gonna have less buildings closer to the river.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to talk about is that we've been working on this for a better part of a year. And then we were working on this previously with the movie studio. But the new FEMA maps came out this year and that whole tree line area is now included in the floodplain where it wasn't before. And so I've written in here an alternative to the cluster, excuse me, to the development you have here. Whereas they could basically saying they could still get the same amount of lots if they were to reserve this, keep it open, whether they dedicate it to the county or to the municipality or the park, just to keep it essentially the whole floodplain area, just as an open nature area. They put trails in there, picnic areas or whatever, but that'd be a much bigger park. And then in exchange for that, they get the same amount
It'd
of
be like 5 or
dwellings.
6 acres if you did that. That's
Right.
big.
Yeah, it's a big area and it's beautiful. I don't know if you walk down in there, but it's
I've been down there many times.
it's a fun little nature area. But in exchange for that, we'd allow them to cluster those lots instead of 15,000 square feet. They can go down smaller than that.
Okay. So I'm not sure I'd agree with that, frankly.
And we can adjust.
So to get over that FEMA, Matt, can't you just simply cover this in?
So yeah, that's, so basically the way that we negotiated the agreement is that the applicant has the option to either fill it in. They've got to be 1 foot above base flood elevation according to our own floodplain ordinance. But when they do develop in the floodplain, if they fill anything in, that means that water is going to go somewhere else if the flood does happen. And so if that water is going to be displaced and affect another property owner, these guys would be responsible essentially for mitigating
Jason,
that.
the river is just gonna go down the river.
That's kind of what I thought as well. And so I
And
figured.
I think you got enough dirt on that C2 parcel to cover about half that,
On your C2 part, sorry, which parcel?
on the C2 that
Oh,
you've got on there. You know, that's
possibly.
high in elevation, and that old home you're gonna remove, and,
That's true.
yeah, so.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about cutting it down. There is, Hooper has their ditch, their canal that runs right through that. So that's the only, you can't cut that down too much. Because they're.
Yeah, they do have that going through there, but does it dead end on that property? Does it go any further?
It comes through and back through on this side of the property, or on the, over here.
2,800.
Yeah, it goes through 2800 to the west.
It's a pretty big ditch.
They said
Yeah,
we
but
can
I-
move it. We
Yeah.
just, we have to get it approved and we can, so if we need to move it.
Yeah, I
closer,
think
we
you'd
will.
wanna move it off there. Cause that big pond they put in there, you're not gonna use it anymore.
Well, Gary would like to use it temporarily, or not Gary, Greg from Hooper Irrigation. They would like us to allow them
Actually,
temporary use on that.
I went out there the other day and rode through that whole area with him, and he talked to me a
Yeah.
little bit
Are
about
they
that.
using that pond?
Well, the people who irrigate on that. So what happens is, they're on about a 8-day irrigation cycle on there.
Right.
And some of these, vegetables that grow on that ground need to be irrigated more often. In fact, they drip irrigate it.
Wow.
And so they built that pond so they can hold over enough water to irrigate, several times a week.
Yeah.
And that's the concept behind it.
Yeah, and so Hooper wants us to give them temporary access so they can provide it to the rest of Western Weber until they find their prime spot in the kind of more central. So, which would also benefit us because then we could use it for
Yeah.
our project too, in the meantime.
Yeah, that's true. Doesn't hurt you.
So,
Fun little project. It's been good to work with these guys. So I guess really the outstanding question is, are we comfortable selling the land or swapping or whatever it is that you guys want to do? If we've got a
Well-
provision in here for a 4-acre park, maybe what we could do is write it to say that the county gets to operate and maintain that 4 acres or whatever until we choose to make a park out of it.
I would think you wouldn't want us doing that. I wouldn't want that. Ice in your shoes.
No, I'd rather see the park, go to the park district.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's who
I
wants,
agree with that.
that's who wants to run it.
Yeah.
Which it should be run by the park district. They've already got the board in place.
Well, so what about if this piece across the river, at the time he wanted 1,000,000, 3 or 4 for it, about 20 acres all total. What if we took that parcel across the way and you bought this?
which parcel across the way?
We're talking about that 5.5, 6 acres on the end.
Oh, Bob Morris.
Yeah, you want that piece. What if the county bought it with you? Split that, we took the, what that gives, about
5 acres.
13 acres on the other side of the river.
Oh, you're talking about, he doesn't wanna, he would only
Oh,
sell
yeah.
this side of the river.
Well, yeah,
We
but
could
that
talk
was the
about buying
problem.
the
He
other
doesn't
side.
want to break it apart. When we tried to buy it, he wouldn't separate those.
Right.
We could talk to him
Yeah,
and
we
see
could
if he'd
ask
be
him about
interested in
that.
selling us that piece.
Well, you know, the entrance to the road is about the same, you know, they're maybe 150 yards apart.
And you're
And,
saying you'd basically operate out of Mary Slaterville. This is the
Oh,
Mary Slaterville.
geez, that's right, we're in their city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you're back,
Oh,
now
you're
you
right.
got, now you got problems with zoning.
Yeah, that's right. No, that won't work.
Yeah,
We don't want
We would love to have that side though, like
yeah,
personally.
they're not allowing us to dump anything there.
No.
them. Well, they won't even allow us to operate out
Yeah,
there.
they don't let you do anything over there.
Yeah,
Oh, they're hard. They are hard.
well, I'm okay with the trade, but again, we've got to have some place to go to.
How much land
Gage, I've
are
been
you-
looking for,
how much are you looking?
Well, these guys need it, they can go find it. They got
How
more
much,
time
how
than we
much do you
do.
think you need?
7 or 8 acres.
We need, yeah, I'd say, I'd prefer 10.
Could we do some sort of temporary provision, that we provide you a temporary place to dump and do what you normally do until we or you, the county, find something different?
To keep status quo on that. that
Do
parcel?
what?
So essentially keep using that parcel for what it's being
Yeah,
used for
either
until
that
we can.
parcel or somewhere on our ground to provide you a place to do that until we, or the county finds something. I know Pat, he has a hard time finding land, but
I own a lot of land, so if we need to, I just don't have it right where you're looking, just straight off the 12. I have a lot of ground west, more. I don't know if you want to go more west.
Not way more.
No. We don't want to go west of 4,700 for sure.
So I
We
have,
could probably go a little more north or south, well, maybe a little more south, possibly a little north, but not much. Right now, it's about in the center is a nice thing.
I have
Yeah,
a
that
piece
one's
on
very nice of this. I've,
1800 south.
what's his name? Jeff Hell's come to me with a piece of property the other day. I talked to Hart a little bit about it, but not to you. And I suspect we could pick that up pretty easy.
Where's it?
Just west of the Red Barn.
Oh,
Yeah, it's Ron Surridge's property.
Surrey.
You remember him, we went to school.
Oh, yeah. No, he's a friend of mine, yeah.
Well, okay, I'm okay with this. Now, I'm not willing to, stand up to a sell right now. And we'll get going on that. Now that you're actually here, looking us in the eye, I didn't realize I'd be happening this fast. So I'll call Jeff, and we'll get hold of Ron and start looking.
Would you guys be comfortable if we wrote into the development agreement that we'll make the sale as long as we can find somewhere else to go, or just write it in a way that doesn't make us exposed, but
Well, so when are you gonna, start work on this property, moving dirt?
well, once we get it approved.
Yeah, once we get it approved.
Yeah.
No time like the present, this market's hot.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's premature to talk about putting anything in the contract. We don't even have a price established.
Yeah.
right.
I'm still concerned about the process. Whether
Okay.
we can, whether we have to advertise it. Yeah, I'm not willing to get in the way of statute here.
Okay, I'm gonna have
You know,
to,
that just opens us up for all sorts. Those
Yeah.
people out there will come after us with pitchforks.
Absolutely.
And if we make a deal, but behind the scenes, then, yeah, we're not gonna do that.
No,
Okay.
yeah.
So,
we'll have to exclude the county's parcel, which is right about here, from the map.
yeah, I think for now you take the county parcel out.
Okay.
That could be another, that could be 6 months or a year before we get to that stage.
Okay,
What if we left it in? Again, I'm just throwing this out. Left it in, but we didn't own it.
Just put future.
Future, and then you'll just be on the Mylar with us.
I think that'll work. In fact, we'll
I
put
don't
a,
have a problem with that.
we'll put a clause in here that says if
Yep,
the
the
developer
gauge,
picks up that portion of the property, then this automatically
Yeah.
applies to it.
If and when.
If and when.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, but I definitely don't want any promises that we've made any agreement, verbal or in writing, that we've agreed to sell it to these guys.
Okay.
All that does is set us up for a bunch of headaches.
Pitchforks.
Yeah.
What do you think the time frame would be to kind of figure out
6 months to a year.
to actually have a sale on that?
If
And
you guys,
if we do come, if we have a section of land that could be useful for your roads, would that speed the process up at all? Or
For the roads?
for your roads departments?
Oh.
If it looks like something we'd,
Yeah,
want,
yeah.
sure.
But yeah, we don't want to go too far,
Absolutely.
much farther west.
wanted to bring up one final thing. I just spoke with Gary, our engineer. He's a little bit concerned with having buildings that close to the highway. And the applicant was in the beginning as well. I'm not as concerned from a planning perspective. You're not going to get UDOT to decrease the speed there unless there's a reason for them to decrease the speed. So it's kind of order of operation. Do you put the buildings in and hope they
You
decrease
talking
the
about
speed?
these,
No.
this road?
I'm talking about 12th Street. Yep. So
Those are gonna be commercial, aren't they?
yes, so right on the other side of the river, the speed jumps up, I think it's to 55.
Right.
So UDOT won't decrease that unless they have a reason or warrant, essentially. They'll do a speed warrant study to decrease it. If there are entrances along this and there's commercial activity along this, that'll be their warrant to decrease it, but they won't do any decrease until construction starts.
Have you got your accesses approved by UDOT?
We had a meeting with them, just a pre-application meeting. So, but they didn't have any issues with the access as we proposed here.
Okay. Well, yeah, because how close to the road are they?
So we're proposing, so technically the buildings are a good, probably 30 feet from the road itself, the asphalt portion, but we're asking them to be no more than 15 feet away from the edge of the right of way, essentially.
Sorry, going back to the county pieces and the road shop. If this does end up being an issue with the floodplain,
Mhm.
like we're kind of projecting, can the road shops go in there? Because we're worried about it because we don't want to pay high flood insurance and all
Right.
that.
Right.
But if you put an access into a section of that area, is that an option?
What do you guys think? So honestly, for them to be able to develop in this area, they're either gonna have to do 1 foot above base flood elevation and everyone's gonna have to have flood insurance. Or they could apply to FEMA for a conditional letter of map revision and give all their engineering data about what they're gonna do to the property, build it up and all that is gonna make it so it's no longer merits it to be in the floodplain. At which point they have to go and do all the engineering, they have to bring and fill whatever it is that is necessary to ensure it is pulled out of the floodplain. And so that's quite a bit of effort, and there's a federal process that runs with it. I mean, they probably won't be developing in here if they want to do that for at least a year. And they have to go through and get a final LOMA, which is a letter of map amendment, to officially change the map. They could either do that and be developing a year from now, or if they wanted to just say, all right, we'll cluster all of our buildings over here, county, you guys can have this area where the trees are, is what I'm hearing, which is probably bigger than what our current property is.
Oh, yeah, substantially.
It's about 34 acres, of that 82.
We just don't know whether we can dump on it.
That's the question.
We're dumping on
Yeah,
it.
you know
Not
about it now.
stopping you now.
Yeah, so we're dumping on it, Gage, on a regular basis,
On our
on
yeah.
our property. And it looks just like all that stuff he's got.
Yeah, your property would be in the floodplain.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
would be in the floodplain.
Just a thought, we can still preserve a bunch of it as a park and, if that cluster option doesn't work, but my thought is there's a nice access right there on 2500 West that we could carve out a nice spot for, and Charlie's talked, I don't know what else you guys have planned, but that's a nice spot for a roads department.
There wouldn't be a reason you couldn't put the park in the floodplain.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't see an issue there. Do you?
With which part?
A roads department? If they wanted to sell us portions of this and we'd come in just like we do now along the river, we might have to widen that a little bit, but come in along the river and then we'd occupy what we do today and extend into whatever they wanted to get rid of.
I don't see a problem.
I don't see a problem with that at all.
We could look at that.
Yeah, we could look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd absolutely say we
Yeah,
could
we
look
don't
at
have to
that.
go find somewhere else.
Okay, I'll make sure the agreement is written in a way that provides flexibility for that, as well as addresses the if and when this other parcel gets swapped or sold or changed or whatever.
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Okay.
All right, you've something to work on.
All right, thanks, Commissioners.
So we shooting for the 7th still.
Oh, that's right. So getting it on a commission agenda, we had chatted about the possibility of potentially getting it on for next week, but excuse me, I don't want to rush it for you guys.
There's no meeting next week.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, then not next
Plus,
week.
I don't think you're ready. Doesn't look to me like, I mean, this is all fine, but they don't own the property and we don't know what we're gonna end up doing between the two of us. And, we got a few things to work out there.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking we just add that flexibility in the agreement. That we would still need to work all that out, but we can wait. It's up to you guys if you don't feel like it's quite ready.
Well, have you run through the planning commission?
Yeah, that was this map here. Planning Commission saw that. They saw a little bit of a different version of the conceptual layout, but it was still pretty dang close to this.
Well, under that scenario right there, I don't have a problem. I'd vote for that.
Yeah, so is that what you'd be coming to us with?
Yeah, look, the concept plan would look like this.
Yeah, but the rezone you're looking for would be that.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, I'd vote for that.
Yeah, this C2 line here would be a little bit higher. It'd actually take this northern parcel right here and go cut across that way. But what their proposal in that C2 zone is, it's not commercial, it's multifamily, which is what the Planning Commission.
So what you're asking for is a zone change,
Yeah, so it's a zone change and a conceptual master plan approval for the property.
and both of those have been approved by the
Planning
planning
Commission.
commission.
Yeah, there was one dissenting vote, and the one dissenting vote said we shouldn't put multifamily in the commercial zone unless we already allow it in the commercial zone. That was the dissenting vote, but we would apply the master.
that?
That was Brendan Edwards.
Really?
But I think it was just a formality. I think it was, it's not listed in the commercial zone as being allowed. But this wouldn't just be a C2, RE20 and RE15 rezone. It would also apply a master plan development overlay zone, which that gives us a lot of flexibility to allow a lot more things to happen in it, including multifamily. So,
Yeah.
Does the rezone only apply to the development agreement, or will that'll be a straight up master plan rezone?
Just as one.
what do you mean?
Sorry, does that make sense? Is this property gonna be rezoned to exactly that? Or
Yes.
does that only apply to the development agreement?
No, so the property will be rezoned to that. In fact, that's something that you probably saw me add in.
Yeah,
I've just got 3 different zones in there, and I say in these zones, these are the things that
that makes
can
sense.
happen. So,
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think there's much more, unless you guys want to wait on negotiating the land swap or whatever. I don't think there's much more for us to do. And so, I mean, we could.
Yeah,
push
I'm
pause,
okay
or
with
we
that,
can-
as long as the development agreement says what we needed to.
What is the county's property rezoned to in this case?
It would be
15 and 20.
somewhere between RE15 and RE20.
The only concern is, I guess it's a non-conforming use that's there. It's governmental use anyway, but
That it's not allowed in those
yeah,
zones.
I just don't want people.
So
Right.
I'm gonna write the rezone and the development agreement to say it doesn't apply to those properties until the applicant acquires them.
The zone doesn't apply there.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, because we'll be getting letters that why you allowing that in RE15.
Right. I'll make sure that's clear. So you'll see 2 things on your agenda if you're comfortable moving forward. You'll see the development agreement and you'll see a rezone. We'll do the rezone approval first.
Yeah, I want to see that development agreement before it gets the agenda.
And
Same here.
this is the majority of what it is, but I'll get in and add that language. And I'll make sure it gets to you before it hits the agenda. So no meeting next week. Are you guys going to do work session next week?
No,
Okay, so nothing next week. So we may be looking at 2nd or 3rd week in December.
Harv's out of town next week,
Okay.
so we're taking time we'll be here, but around different places.
right.
Okay. Thanks, commissioners.
You bet.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks. Good to see you.
Got Brian there.
All right. Brian, can you hear us?
I can, Commissioner. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Great. I've got a quick update on our COVID situation for you today. The good news is we're still on a downward trend with our case numbers, but we're approaching that with a little bit of caution this week because we know there was less testing happening last week with the holiday, and we also anticipate a little bit of a bump up again in our positive case numbers after the holidays. We'll start to see those probably about 5 to 7 days after the holiday. We expect to see a little bit of an increase, but keeping our fingers crossed that we continue to stay on a downward trajectory over what we saw, back in October. Today we're at 48,295 total cases. That's an increase of 558 from last week. As we look at the active cases, we're 2,484 active cases, which is a decrease of 539 from what I reported to you last week. That's the largest decrease we've seen going back to the decline in cases that we had last spring. So
Brian, across the country, we're seeing that actually pick up a little right now.
yeah, the Intermountain West is kind of doing its own thing compared to the rest of the country. When especially the East Coast, when they're declining, we seem to be raising, and when their rates are raising, we decline a little bit. So
are we behind them or are we ahead of them?
we're in a good spot. So wherever that's at, we're in a good spot because our cases are going down. So
all right.
Let's see, our 7-day average is 79 new cases a day. That's what we're seeing right now. That's a decrease of 43 new cases again a day from what I reported last week. Last week was 122. So again, good numbers this week, but recognizing that we had the holiday, and that could impact some of the numbers that we're seeing. We won't know the real impact for a few more days. Our deaths have climbed up to 330. That's 3 additional ones from what I reported last week. And our hospitals, that's one of the other indicators we're watching really closely. That is staying pretty steady. We're still at 130% occupancy for our ICU beds. And that's kind of fluctuated between 110 and 136 over the last 2 months. Generally, our hospitals will reflect what's happening with our case numbers 2 to 3 weeks later than our case numbers. So we're hopeful that we start to see that pressure on the hospitals decline soon here, but it hasn't quite happened yet. 66 of the we have 66 COVID hospitalizations right now. 30 of those are in the ICU. And they're occupying 30 of those 39 ICU beds. So that indicator is staying pretty steady as I report to you weekly. When we look to the schools and our situation we're experiencing this week there, again, some more positive news as our case numbers are declining in the schools. We now have an active case number of 189 cases. That's a decrease of 61 cases from what we reported last week. We've seen that decline in the student cases. That's 162, which is a decrease of 47 from last week, 17 in the teachers, and 10 of the other positions associated with schools. So again, the trend with the schools is declining case numbers. Some of that's holiday related, but we also are kind of wondering how, having a break from school for 5 days is going to impact the school rates altogether. We currently have 82 of our 91 schools reporting at least 1 case. None of those 82 are to the midpoint of their threshold for tests to stay. And that's the first time, well, let me take that back. We've had a couple of schools over the last 6 weeks that have been close to the midpoint of their test to stay threshold. But this week is a reflection of that decline. We don't have any there. So good. We're in a good situation with the schools too. Really the wild card for us is how many people got together with their families over the holidays and how many of their family members were symptomatic and able to pass that on to additional members of their families or friends. And we'll start to see that in the next few days. But we don't expect it'll be a spike and a sustained growth like we've seen with the other 3 waves that we've had over the last 20 months. So overall, I guess just to wrap it up, I think we're in a good spot. Our case numbers are declining. We're managing the cases well at the schools, and the school break should help us with that even further. So that's let me talk about vaccinations real quick. Continue to see some growth in our vaccination efforts. We're about 15% of our 5 to 11-year-olds vaccinated. That stalled just a little bit because of the holiday week, but we hope to see it pick up this week again. And then our 12 to 18-year-olds and our 19 to 29-year-olds still have at least 1% growth. So they're getting closer to 55% of that, of both of those populations being vaccinated. So good report there too. And that's what I've got for you this week.
So the booster shots, are you doing good on boosters?
We are, Commissioner, and sorry, I don't have a number for you on the boosters today, but we have seen an uptake in the eligibility or people that are eligible to get it, getting that. And that's pretty much everyone now that's had at least 6 months since the second dose of their first vaccination. So we are, we have about 100 appointments a day that we're doing here, plus all of the partners in our area. There's 44 pharmacies and other partners administering them. And what we're hearing is that most are booking all of their appointments. So,
Well, good then.
Yeah.
And that's a great report.
That's good. So Brian, how are people making appointments for the health department?
they can go directly to our website and contact us there, or they can call in and we're scheduling health department appointments there on the phones. Or they can go to Vaccinate Utah and find the links to schedule appointments at the community partners out there like Walgreens and CVS and so forth. So.
Okay. That's a good report.
Yeah, that's a good report. Well, is there anything we need to do in the future or look ahead, Brian?
I think we're right on track with managing our COVID response as best we can. So we'll just, if we can just continue to monitor our cases, I'll report to you how we're seeing things. But being optimistic, I don't think we're going to see another day in the future where I've got to come to you and have a discussion about putting in a public health order of one type or another. We're seeing some information come out about a new variant it's called the Omicron variant. It's a little bit of a change to the Delta variant. It's coming out of South Africa, demonstrating to be highly transmissible. We just don't know enough about it yet to know how effective our vaccinations or our natural immunity will be to it. But again, we're not, from what we're hearing from the federal level down through the state, we just don't feel like it will be a large enough impact to us to cause some of the issues that we had to work through with the Delta variant.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Good. All right, Brian, thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thanks, commissioners. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks for the report.
Bye.
Well, our next one is really outside this one, just adjourn.
Yeah, motion to adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're adjourned.
Well, I think we're supposed to meet the Delta
We are.
or the